I'll ask Mr. Riddick if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. And Mr. Waller, we need certification of the closed meeting.
Resolution of certification of the closed meeting of October 10th, 2019, pursuant to Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Mayo?
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
Yes.
Board Member Story?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Chairman Byram?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item is the approval of the agenda. This is an action item.
I move for the approval of the agenda as presented.
Second the motion.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Mayo?
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
Yes.
Board Member Story?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Chairman Byram?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Actions on closed meeting items. Dr. Buck, the personnel report.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Mayo?
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
Yes.
Board Member Story?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Chairman Byram?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next item, pupil personnel report. Dr. Buck.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the pupil personnel reports as presented.
Second the motion.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Mayo?
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
Yes.
Board Member Story?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Chairman Byram?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Public speakers on agenda topics. There are none.
None for early appearances.
Okay. Next, we have Dr. Harrison, reports by Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, and at this time, I would like to call to the podium Ms. Beth Ann Bradshaw, who's going to share some good news reports this evening. She's going to be highlighting Bullying Prevention Month and also Virginia School Boards Association Academy Awards. Thank you, Ms. Bradshaw.
Good evening. Each month we take this opportunity to share with you and the viewing audience at home some of the great things that are happening in our schools each and every day and some of the accomplishments of our staff and students. October is recognized as National Bullying Prevention Month, and our schools have done a lot of some creative activities to help our students understand the importance of kindness. Of course, bullying prevention is a focus every day of the year, but tonight we wanted to share a couple of examples that have already happened since school started. Let's see if I'm doing this right. Ink. This is the national October where it's uninstalling. I thought that was cute. But I want to, on the state level, the governor has recognized October, along with the Virginia School Boards Association, as Bullying Prevention Month. And so typically the clerk reads it, but since we're up here on the, it's up on the screen, I'm going to read it for us. Whereas school bullying has become an increasingly significant problem in the United States and Virginia, whereas over 20% of youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying each year, either as a bully or as a victim, and whereas bullying can assume many forms, including verbal, physical, and in cyberspace, and can happen on and off school grounds, and whereas it is important for Virginia parents, students, and teachers, and school administrators to be aware of bullying and to encourage discussion of the problem as a school community. And whereas the Virginia School Boards Association has developed a model policy on anti-bullying to encourage positive behaviors and to eliminate bullying behaviors. Now, therefore, October is recognized in Virginia as Bullying Prevention Month. I'd now like to invite up our representatives from John Yates Middle School, starting with Dr. Wendy Van Hosen, the principal, to share some of the things they did recently that we're highlighting tonight to involve student interactions with their peers. Eek. Good at this, John. There we go. Sorry.
Good evening,
Evening.
Dr. Gordon, school board members, and guests. I am Dr. Van Hosen, proud principal of John Yates Middle School, where we embrace and engage every charger every day. My assistant principals, Corey Hamlin and Timothy Kubanak, are also here this evening. And standing with me is one of our 8th grade students, Angelina Dickens. Angelina is a student who is a member of our Greek squad as well as our Junior Beta Club. It is a pleasure to stand before you this evening to share one of our efforts we've taken so far to create an atmosphere of kindness and inclusiveness at John Yates Middle School. During the week of September 23rd through the 27th, the students and staff at John Yates participated in what's called Starts with Hello. Starts with Hello is a nationwide effort where schools across the United States make a commitment to bring attention to the importance of creating positive social connections for all students as a way to fight against bullying. So throughout the week, our students and staff participated in various activities to promote kindness, and our Greek squad students played an integral part in what we were able to accomplish. So I'm going to have Angelina to speak just for a few moments about the role that our Greek students played.
Hello. During Start with Hello Week, my fellow Greek Squad members and myself went around the school and we went to classes and talked to them about kind things we can do around our school and what nice things we can say to our fellow students. And we had a kindness wall in the cafeteria where we got to write sticky notes of things, like nice things that have happened to us around our school.
Thank you, Angelina. Angelina is very modest, but the students really were advocates themselves. They were advocates for their peers, and it was a very powerful thing to watch, to see students advocate for kindness to their own peers. And we know that that is something that's very courageous for a student to be able to do. In addition to our Greek squad members speaking with their peers about kindness, we also involved all of our teachers. Our teachers were able to do a mini lesson on kindness in each of the classrooms and show a video from the Start with Hello initiative. As Angelina just mentioned, we did have students participate in our Start with Hello Smile Wall. This is a picture of it. So in our cafeteria, as Angelina just mentioned, students had an opportunity to take a sticky note and to write something positive on the sticky note and then post it on the Start with Hello Smile Wall. It was quite impactful. We have some close-ups here of some of the messages that our students wrote. One of them wrote, "You are loved no matter your race, color, ethnicity, or sexuality." Another one wrote, "Think outside your box and get to know people." Yet another one wrote, "Have an awesome day, keep your head up even if it's a hard day." So the students really embraced this effort, and they really took it upon themselves to just say some kind words, and I think even us adults were inspired by some of the things that the students wrote. In addition to our Smile Wall, we also had a Random Acts of Kindness Day where students were recognized by our PBIS program for their random acts of kindness throughout the school day. They received a PBIS ticket, and then by the time we reached Friday, we had a culminating event in our cafeteria where students who had received a random act of kindness ticket were acknowledged. Last but not least, we also had what we called a mix and mingle during lunch. Mr. Mitnick, school board member Mitnick, was able to come by for two of our events. The Mix and Mingle was one, and also he was able to see our Smile Board. There's a picture of Mr. Mitnick with a few of our students and myself. But our Mix and Mingle, it was to promote students sitting with students that they would not normally sit with, so that students would not feel isolated in the cafeteria. We know that the cafeteria is a time where if a student is going to feel isolated, that's one of the most prominent times where it happens. So we were intentional about asking students, and students were intentional about making an effort to communicate, connect, and sit with students that they would not normally sit with. I would like to lastly say that we are committed to creating a culture of kindness at John Yates and continuing our efforts. Of course, October is Anti-Bullying Month, and we're continuing our efforts for October. We have an essay contest for the month of October. Students are encouraged to write about how does kindness fight against bullying. All of our students are encouraged to participate. And we'll have an Orange Out Day, and we'll be offering some positive announcements each morning to just keep the conversation of kindness, connections, and inclusiveness on the minds of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Van Hosen, Mr. Hamlin, Mr. Kubinek, for a great project that you have undertaken, and especially thank you to the students for embracing that project. I know it's going to pay big dividends in the future, and kindness and loving your fellow man is what we should all be about. So thank you very much for promoting all of that.
Just wanted to mention a couple of other things. This is just one example of activities throughout the year, but have a couple pictures up here of the Suffolk Sheriff's Department has been to many of our elementary schools to share bullying prevention messages on a grade-by-grade level. We have DAB t-shirts here, which is the Dolphins Against Bullying, with our typical orange, which is Anti-Bullying Month. That's at Northern Shores. And at MacBen here, you have Be the Eye and Kind. And so these kids are actually standing in the photos to be the eye. And I thought that was a wonderful picture. We've had other things, posters contest, some student contests to have a No Bullying logo for their shirts, signing pledge cards, promoting things like a kindness tree or an erase meanness campaign. So you'll see those things throughout the month and throughout the year. October 23rd is typically a national day where we do wear orange for Unity Day. And so we'll be seeing a lot more orange as the month progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradshaw. And at this time, I would like to call to the podium Mr. Andre Skinner, our Coordinator of Career and Technical Education, and he's going to share with us tonight an annual report on our CTE Advisory Council. Also in front of you, you'll find some additional information, board members, some brochures, as well as a flyer with some important dates for our CTE program. Thank you. Mr. Skinner.
Good afternoon. Greetings, Dr. Gordon. Greetings, Dr. Harrison, Vice Chair Brooks Bucks, Vice Chair Brooks Bucks, and also Chairman Byram. And to the rest of the group, good morning or good afternoon, good evening. I'm very excited. I have a couple of friends in the background. If I can get them to stand for one brief moment. Some of my advisory council did show up for me tonight, so it makes me feel a little off script, but I did want to recognize them, especially Mrs. Turntine had a ribbon cutting today. She serves as one of the co-chairs for my advisory council. She also is Turntine Insurance, so she had a ribbon cutting off of, I forget which street, but they told us today it was the largest ribbon cutting in Suffolk that they've seen for quite a while. And she's a big part, as well as Ms. Parker from CCAP and Mr. Michael Miltier from CCAP as well. Now I'll get back on. Thank you all for coming. I'll get back on track. I apologize. My name is Andre Skinner, coordinator for Career and Technical Education. I wanted to just go through a rundown of what our advisory council functions are, just to give everybody a clear opportunity to see what is being represented throughout our career and technical education courses. Part of the functions of our advisory council, and I won't read each and every one, but some of the main things, we do a review of our annual CTE division plan. We also make certain that our group recommends classroom, equipment, instructional material. One of the bigger things, they suggest course content, program development. They also give us suggestions for work-based learning projects. And the main gist of our advisory council is for me to bring in different persons from industry, parents, students. We come together as a team and we collaboratively come up with what we're going to do to kind of move forward the CTE programs. They also make certain that they're supporting our student organizations, and for the most part, we attempt to get them to assist in the placement of our students in some of our co-op programs. The biggest thing and the biggest portion of my advisory council is making certain that when they come in, they're actually having something to offer that's going to move the program and not just coming in to kind of sit. I have a very active group that's in and out, and the industry folks that come in to me give me that gist, or they give me what's going on in the industry that our students need. We have great teachers, but at some point in time, we have to make certain that our teachers are remaining relevant in the fields that they're actually teaching. So that's where our industry partners and our industry persons come in to kind of let us know what is relevant, what's going on out in the industry that our teachers may not have an opportunity to kind of bring to the table. Or if we're behind, they speed us up and tell us what correct techniques, they tell us what is actually out in the field, and they also assess and kind of go through programs with me and saying, how are you testing them, what tests are being given, and they give their advice to make certain that our students have that opportunity upon leaving the classroom to enter into the workforce, which is a major component of CTE. Just a couple of our advisory council membership persons, where they actually come from, the opportunities that they present or the information that they share. Centera Obacy, State Farm Insurance, of course, Turntine Insurance. City of Suffolk does an excellent job with our Project Lead the Way opportunities, and as well as our programs down at CCAP. They make certain that when they come in, they're giving our students opportunities to get relevant work. From time to time, they're coming in and they're teaching classes. They're also pulling them now into the city to obtain some of these jobs. We've had great success with our Public Works Cadet program, which enables our students to come in, and they've actually gotten jobs. So a couple of our students are working for the city. On my route to Platt Turnip last week, one of them was actually at the school board right at the corner, kind of working on lights for us. So that student would go by the name of Ben Shapiro, one of our former students, and also the current student or current son of one of our teachers that is in CTE. So when I walk out into the streets and can actually identify workers that are from our program or from our school, we know that we're heading in the right direction and we're doing some great things. My advisory council, very instrumental in putting on some of our student programs. Some of you have seen some of the programs and have seen them at work. One of the ones that I want to highlight, our student conference. That's normally our promoting career planning for our ninth graders. So this is strictly for ninth grade students. We try to cap it at about 150 students, and this is an opportunity for ninth graders to come in and just begin to see what career planning looks like. We bring in and have different themes from year to year, bringing in different businesses that kind of do sort of rotations to make certain that they can see other career pathways outside of the sports arena, outside of the music arena, and we want to make certain that they are immensely entrenched in other pathways that we may not, as educators, have a good handle on. I know oftentimes we come in and we try to encourage them to be teachers, but as we are going through, our ninth graders are now realizing there are 16 career clusters, and they are understanding that there are several pathways, some of which are not even created yet, for which we'll get into a little later. But we had 144 ninth graders, 15 presenters from about 8 different businesses. For the last conference, we did have our school personnel come in. We had a great time with those ninth graders. When they come back to me and as 12th graders, they would attend our Career Expo, and that's our student interview training process. For our Career Expo this year, we had 58 representatives from 35 different businesses. Of course, all of our programs are located at the Hilton Garden Inn. We conducted over 338 interviews with our students. A lot of times, our students are given opportunities from these interviews to enter into the workforce. There are several businesses that have taken on some of our students, one of which our very own IT department, John Littlefield, has agreed as well. And one of the big things that I do want to say something about our IT program, as CCAP continues to enroll into our cybersecurity programs, we do have Mr. Littlefield that's recognizing if we're going to ask businesses to kind of go in and bring in our students and trust us, then we probably need to show it from within. So he's going to kind of assist me with that journey and pulling in some of our students. As they are conducting those interviews, I'm remembering several students that came to his table, and I sit back and I watch just the maturity level that our students present and what they've learned from their CTE courses as they're coming in professionally dressed with resumes. As they are being graded from personnel from all of these businesses, they do receive feedback. That feedback is reviewed by myself. A copy also goes to the school teacher, and then I keep a copy because I think when it gets down to it, I need to know what my teachers are actually teaching, if it's being transferred from teachers to students. And then we need to see what the businesses are really saying that we lack or that we're doing well as far as preparing our students. So I thank him, and I thank all of the businesses that have actually come in and assisted throughout this endeavor. The non-traditional extravaganza is the third event that my advisory council assists with. The non-traditional extravaganza, when you go into the workforce and you see 25% of the opposite gender inside of a workforce. So say, for instance, we're looking at the nursing field and we're realizing there's a critical shortage of male nurses, or you're in the construction or heavy utility construction field, and then you see several males, but you see very few females. So we try to make certain that the non-traditional path is sitting there and students can actually see these types of persons in these non-traditional fields. This is a big problem out in the world of work, and a lot of it comes from just gender biases that we're trying to make certain that we cut off. So as we're bringing in students, we're trying to let them see and ask questions. They start off with questionnaires. How did you get involved in this particular gender? What type of biases might you see that I might encounter? How can you help me? How can I be more like you? And we all know sometimes that seeing is believing, and that would be business participants that normally come. I wanted to put this up here, and I know I'm going to leave somebody out. As I was designing the slides, I'm sitting there like, I know the businesses are looking at me. They're probably saying, oh my goodness, Skinner didn't put me up here, but I did want to pretty much show that it is not just fast food, it is not just grocery, it is not just some of your bottom line or your entry level businesses that are participating with us. We starting off with Autumn Care. Branscombe is kind of like a utility charter. Chick-fil-A, City of Portsmouth Water Quality, of course City of Suffolk Work Development, Culinary Institute, and then the list goes on. H&R Block, Hilton Garden, Great Clips, First Team Automotive. So we have Lee Bear Mining for USA. We have an assortment, and we attempt to get all of the clusters from the 16 clusters inside so that students can get a pretty good buffet of what I may want to do, what should I do, or is this something that I want to do? And sometimes figuring out what you don't want to do is more important than realizing what you really want at that particular age. I do want to point out Target. I want to point out Cisco and QVC. And I want to do that only because these three companies have created something with myself and our three different schools, a school-to-work program from which we hope will continue to expand. We've done tours. QVC is the last of the three to come in, but each high school now has a partnership with one of the three big box entrepreneurship type programs, QVC being the last. And what they do, they actually come out to our programs, they come out to our high schools, they teach 2 classes with identified students from our CTE programs, and then the last program that they do, or the last touch that they make with our students, is like a business field trip where they can actually go and see in action what has been discussed. At the end, we try to make them fill out applications to at least get in the database, and then at some point in time they try to say that if our students, upon graduating or upon reaching that magical age of 18, start coming through that pipeline, then they will have a higher chance of being hired, because all of them currently do have some opportunities for employment, but the age, that magical age of 18 is sometimes our hindrance. Are there questions thus far? All right, if I can go into, and hopefully you all can actually see it, completer industry testing rates. I am very, very excited about the opportunities that our CTE program gives our students. So I wanted to kind of pull something from the Department of Education as far as completers. Well, what are completers, Skinner? Completers are seniors or students, most likely they were seniors, but most times it's students that have completed a sequence of CTE courses, all the way down to that attainment rate of 80% mastery on their task competencies, and most times having a B or better to be considered a completer. Well, if you can look at our school division for students in that subdivision, we had 514 completers for just this last 18-19 school year. The number of completers taking tests, 512. So we had 2 students that did not take a test last year. That put us at 99.61 as a participation rate for completers taking tests. That is astronomical. Now, what about the last 2 that I left, or that we left out? Hopefully we'll be at 100%, but this is probably one of the highest rates that we're going to find across our region, and I'm very proud of that. Also very proud at the pass rate. So out of 512 completers that took tests, we're looking at a 96.88 pass rate from those students. That is also a great job, and I want to send kudos out to all of my CTE staff, because our staff, they're working hard to make certain that we're making and changing the lives for our students. A 96.8 as far as students passing, that is astronomical. So I want to make certain that I say that once or twice just to make sure everybody hears it. I'm also very excited, and as we're looking at SOL rates, and then sometimes people compare CTE tests to SOL rates, there's really no comparison. But then we go down to some of the different subgroups. I want to start with my African American subgroup. 310 completers, 309 took a test, 99.68 participation rate, 96.44 pass rate. That is an excellent job. We often look for achievement gaps. If I go down 98.68, we're about 2 points when you're talking about African Americans versus the Caucasian subgroup, if you're looking at it in terms of what we would ideally try to correlate SOL tests. So there is not a 10% gap when you're talking about the CTE programs, and I want to make certain that that's out there. When we talk about individuals with disability, they're at 78.69. Very, very high in comparison to SOL rates, but then you start to see a little gap. But then they also break it down from students with disabilities to the ADA, and when you start trying to combine that, students even with any types of disabilities are doing well when they're taking CTE tests, and I think that speaks volumes to the level of competency that our teachers have and their ability to transform or transfer that information to all students and not just one particular student, and that just lends itself to the world of career and technical education as well. Questions or concerns on that? Skinner, what is your group doing with industry credentials? I always say that this could be very misleading from time to time, because enrollment inside of CTE classes also drives how many students are actually in courses that have testing opportunities. Sometimes you're in a Part 1 course and you don't take the test until you've completed the Part 2 course. So depending on student enrollment in each course, it kind of depends on how many opportunities students have from year to year. But this is the 5-year breakdown of industry credentials that are earned for our school division, and this is total, going back to 2014-15 all the way up to 18-19. This particular school year just passed, our students attained 2,051 last year, 2013, and you can follow all the way down. You would love to see this number continuously rise, but like I said, enrollment does bear its head sometimes in programs. So some years they could be the same number of opportunities, less students enrolled, so more students in Part 1 than there are in Part 2, so then they would have to wait. But for a substantial gain, we're at 2,051 industry credentials earned.
Mr. Skinner, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On that slide? I was going to wait till the end, but you've been asking. So, is taking the finance course in these numbers of industry credentials?
Absolutely. Every course, every test that we took in Suffolk Public Schools is included in all of these numbers. Our state report comes from VDOE, and it includes every test that we've taken.
So every student in high school must take that finance course and pass that credential test, right?
Absolutely not.
Not.
No. So the difference between the SOLs and when you're talking about career and technical education, every student takes EPF, which is Education and Personal Finance, and they're taking a test that comes to complete that. If they do not take that test, or if they do not take it, then they could still pass, or they can still pass the class and fail the test, or vice versa. What you're probably attempting to state is, will students graduate if they do not pass EPF? They have to take it. They have to have an industry credential. It does not have to necessarily be that particular one. So the regs state now you have to have an industry credential as a student that is graduating, or taking a higher level course, an AP or IB course.
Thank you. So of these industry credentials achieved, let's just say out of the 2,051, how many of those represent a finance credential?
You mean when you're speaking finance, you're probably referring to the WISE test. Let me pull that for you really quick if I may. For the WISE test, we had 878 students take it, 720 pass. We had an 82% passing rate for the WISE test. That would include students that were enrolled in education and personal finance.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. If you want to see the breakdown of where the 2,000 came from, then you're looking at Kingsford, Lakeland, and Nansemond River High School. And these are the breakdowns of the license, the industry certifications, as well as the workplace readiness test, which is a Virginia standard test now that we can give. If you look at the last 3 years, and I only went back 3 years to kind of pull it, the last one was 5 years, but I wanted to potentially show the increase in students obtaining credentials, while also stating that VDOE is tracking students earning more than one credential. For this particular school year, we're at 1,642 last year, 1,629 the year previous, 1,598. Our students will continue to hear, and probably more so now than ever, the term stackable credentials. So that is what this is kind of lending itself to when it says students earning one or more credentials. So I could be a 9th or 10th grader. I could pass EPF, the test that you were referencing. That will give me one industry credential. I could then in the 11th grade participate in a course at CCAP, gain another industry credential. So I'm in the business of making certain that our students have various opportunities to stack credentials, because at the end of the day, we're attempting to make them workforce ready, and I'm not looking for students just to have one credential upon completing their high school, 4-year high school, hopefully, if we're on time, graduates, 4 years before they graduate. But that is going to be a major component of what I'm driving for our career and technical education program, starting with this upcoming school year, and probably dating back to my predecessor. But the term stackable credentials has now caught fire, and people are now realizing what it means and what it does for students upon graduating, determining upon not realizing what career path I may or may not want to go into. I feel like I'm on a time limit, but I do want to say something else. Are there more questions? Because I'll be remiss if I don't say this. You have a pamphlet, our co-op program, and that co-op means our students are getting some form of credit for actually participating in employment. So now it's really relevant. Now they're actually employed. So I wanted to just highlight some of the programs that actually give our students an opportunity. And I promise I'll be brief, hopefully. Ruby Tuesday, Bayport Credit Union, of course, that student ran, and it's located inside of Kings Fork. Duke, Automobile, Star Motors, the YMCA, 1 Foot, 2 Foot, Johnson's Gardens, Barton Ford, Sprint, and of course, several fast food and grocery chains. Our students this year, there were 28 students that participated in this co-op opportunity. Why isn't it higher? Because students also have to work a certain number of hours while also attending school. So if you're trying to work and do a co-op program, it's extremely hard because you're in high school, you're not getting out until 3:10. So upon getting out, you cannot work during school hours, and most of our students are taking full load, so they go to work afterwards. In stating that, 10,900 hours worked, a total salary for those students this particular school year, $84,727 that was earned by students in that co-op opportunity. So I'm very, very excited for those students that took upon it, and hopefully we'll have a couple more students that see the value of that and that are employed by some of our businesses, as we are asking businesses to take on the role of internships, externships, job shadowing, and anything necessary to get our students work ready. And I promise this is the last thing. I say that twice, I apologize. But I'm very excited about this as far as just a year in review. We had our first digital shipbuilding STEMpowerment Day, where we partnered with Old Dominion University for middle school students, because oftentimes people are saying, what are you doing for the younger students? They're the ones that are going to change it. So I got with VMAS, and VMAS standing for Virginia Modeling and Simulation Center in the Northern Harborview area. April 27th was Suffolk's Day. So this was our first time they kind of joined forces with us, and they talked about digital shipbuilding. They gave our students an opportunity to come in and do some hands-on learning. They did some iPad work. They had to go in and figure pipes, do cuttings, and do a lot of different things. We had 33 students, 21 parents. Not only did they talk to the students and allow the students to kind of see what type of things were going on, but they had parents there as well. They actually chartered a bus for us. For I don't know what we did to gain that favor, but hopefully we can continue this process. And students were actually filmed, they were videoed, and upon winning, the winning team actually received 2 Vector robots. And if you're not familiar with those are like code programming robots that Forrest Glenn actually won, so kudos to Forrest Glenn. But they were engaged in some real-world STEM application, and it did not come from us. So I think it even made it a little more relevant to see some of the business and industry people kind of putting in and saying, your teachers have been saying this is what they're attempting to prepare you with. These are some of the pathways that you actually saw in the classroom. Now come and put your hands on some of this modeling and simulation that we have here. I do want to make certain that we realize the city of Suffolk had Project Lead the Way. Both of our schools were recognized as distinguished schools, and that's our engineering program as well as our biomedical program. So first time that both were recognized as being distinguished, and there is a set of criteria that is there. 70% of students earning proficient or higher on their testing courses. So we did a great job with that. A lot of other things that we're doing. San Antonio Crosby, Kings Fork High School teacher, is now the president of our Tidewater Virginia Technology, Engineering, and Education Association. I do want to say something about Deborah Shapiro, the son that I actually ran into. She's now the International Technology and Engineering Education Association Region 1 Director. She also won a John Monroe Outstanding Service. Don Roundtree and Sarah McDonald from those Project Lead the Way nationally recognized or distinguished programs were both awarded Project Lead the Way Outstanding Teachers of the Year. So they both have an opportunity to become the National Teachers of the Year after having, hopefully we can get them to Indiana to actually walk across the stage and be accepted into such a higher or top echelon program like this. They've done an outstanding job. Our welding program this particular school year was the Region 2 winner of the Creating Excellence Award. So we got to travel down to Richmond, take some pictures with Dr. Lane and that group. So welding was recognized for the region as being one of the premier programs that is located at CCAP. Of course, I've mentioned our School to Work programs. And last but not least, Don Roundtree was also selected as the Virginia Technology and Engineering Association Teacher of the Year, which is one of the highest honors that can be given to a technology teacher. And with that, I'll kind of turn it over for any other questions that I may be able to answer.
Question?
I have one. Do you have, are you familiar with the Pruden Center Foundation?
The Pruden Center Foundation, yes.
Have you met with them?
Because we are now a Suffolk City School, we're no longer operating under the Pruden Center's signia. They are no longer connected to the College and Career Academy at Pruden. What the Pruden Center Foundation did was it was connected to the Building Trades program, and it attempted to fund programs like the CTSO for building trades. It also kind of gave money to make certain that the Building Trades program could kind of sustain and float on to that next level as well. So, and in reference to the Pruden Center Foundation, I have not met with the Pruden Center Foundation because Building Trades is no longer a program at the College and Career Academy at Pruden.
I'm not sure anyone told them they're not connected anymore, so they contacted me. Maybe that's someone that we could set up a meeting in the future. I don't think that they know they're disconnected other than not being talked to. So anyway, I think it's worth it. Here's a group of people that have been a foundation for 20 years and have given a lot. They didn't attempt to support it. They did support and gave a lot of money to the buildings trade and other programs, and they were very instrumental for a very, very long time, and they still meet. So I think there's been a disconnect, and I hope maybe we can make a connection somehow. That's all I have.
I can speak to that. The Pruden Center Foundation actually had a withdrawal meeting with me. I actually ran the meeting along with the previous teacher, John Thompson, and I sat with the Pruden Foundation, and they were explaining the process when when Ala White pulled out of the Pruden Center. So I'm not certain about that, but that process was explained, and I will say that the Pruden Center Foundation funded just building trades. They didn't fund for additional programs. Great group of guys. Great group of gentlemen, and I actually do know many of them. They were very instrumental in several of the building trades projects. But what I will say, as we kind of transform and we try to bring in programs that are advantageous for our students, or if enrollment kind of changes, is then my duty or obligation to Suffolk Public Schools to kind of make certain that human growth capital is used in the correct way. We had a decline in that program, which unfortunately led to the dismissal of that program, which unfortunately led to the dismissal of that particular program. I'd be more than happy to meet if they would love to fund or kind of attach themselves to another program, and if that's what the meeting is about, I'm there.
I do think there's a disconnect, and I think it's important that there is a meeting, because there must be a disconnect somehow. So I think that's important for our community of gentlemen that have done a lot. So I'll just turn that over to something for the future and see if we can't reconnect with this foundation that worked very hard. And I'm sorry to hear that the buildings program is evidently not something we're going to pursue. I think it's a wonderful area back there. I think we need home builders. We still need builders.
So maybe that's something that could be part of some SMART goals in the future. It'd be great if we could see some SMART goals for you for, what are you attaining, what are you aiming for, what have you goals that you, that you meet every year. That would be great to see that. So I'd like that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any others?
I just want to say one thing. Excellent job.
Wonderful job.
Excellent job. Excellent job. Excellent job. Excellent job. Excellent job. That is the type of success that lets the world know Suffolk rocks.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we don't toot our own horn, but Mr. Skinner, you did an excellent job.
Absolutely.
Your staff working alongside you, excellent job. The CTE students who are enrolled in those courses and taking those tests and passing those tests, excellent job. And I'm going to send you an email with a Major League Baseball contact. I had a meeting today. Not trying to get them on the sports side, but there's a whole nother side that CTE can play into parts when you're talking about Major League Baseball. The meeting I had today, this is what they're looking for. And with those numbers, Suffolk, we're on the move and we're going to keep rocking. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Skinner, I can't let you leave
Yes,
quite
ma'am.
yet.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm dittoing what Mr. Riddick said. He took the words out of my mouth, but it makes me so proud of you tonight. You're doing an excellent job. Your staff is doing an excellent job. Our CTE program is, as he said, is rocking. And it makes me personally proud because I had a hand in having you here.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you are my former student. I just shared that with Dr. Gordon. He wanted to know your first name. I said, it's Andre. But you make me proud, and you make Suffolk proud. And you're a former Nansemond River graduate, and you are making me very proud. Keep up the good work. Same thing, ditto to your staff. Thank you.
I appreciate
Excuse me,
it.
Dr.
Thank you.
Harrison.
Thank you again, Mr. Skinner, and I also want to echo excellent job. Dr. Gordon shared with principals this morning the importance of telling our story and highlighting our successes, so thank you for highlighting the successes of the CTE program tonight. Great job.
Thank you all for all the positive feedback. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have advanced instruction update. Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd like to call to the podium Dr. Maria Lawson Davenport, who will share the Gifted Advisory Board and Advanced Instruction Program updates. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Davenport.
Good evening, school board members and community. This evening, I'm going to share some information about the Gifted Advisory Board and give you an update on the advanced instruction programs. Starting with the Gifted Advisory Board, we are a board that is comprised of parents, which are volunteers from each of the schools, teachers, administrators, guidance, and central office staff. And their purpose is to provide a voice for the gifted community. They express suggestions and concerns related to gifted services. They also review our local plan, which you all approve every 5 years. And they provide recommendations and changes. And they also provide community seminars, information sessions on different topics relevant to gifted learners. In the past, we have had doctors come in to talk about anxiety from EVMS. Last year, we had someone who came in and talked about childhood-informed trauma. So they provide different aspects for the community. And the meeting dates for this year, we meet 3 times a year here in Suffolk. There is a regional meeting that is typically hosted by Virginia Beach. We have not heard of the date of that yet, and that we are often invited to that meeting. We also meet in December, and that's typically our Governor's School for the Arts Information Night. We meet in February where we review the local plan, and then in April we hold our community seminar, and the topic for the community seminar is typically provided by the parents and the community members on what they feel is most relevant to gifted learners at that time. So a little bit of what's going on in gifted services. The elementary school, we have increased focus on planning and pushing in all core areas. The gifted teachers meet regularly with each grade level to provide resources and materials, and also do a push-in to all those core area courses when it is applicable. We also have the implementation of the kindergarten talent pool. This is a watch list. This isn't actually gifted services, but it allows us to monitor students that show high gifted potential. We also provide provision of accelerated reading materials for small group and guided reading. And we have an increase in STEAM activities and initiatives. A lot of our gifted teachers set up the Hour of Code in their buildings. They also work with the Spiros. They do engineering briefs and a lot of different activities. A lot of them help to coordinate the STEM nights in their local schools as well. And then, of course, I continue to provide professional development in equity and underrepresented populations in the gifted services. This is just a snapshot of our second grade gifted screening. In second grade, all students are tested using the COGAT, and that is a comprehensive test that actually identifies an array of areas. And from that, we pull students who score within a certain threshold and take them through full gifted eligibility. So if you look at our numbers here, you can see we have the same number of students as last year, even though our numbers increased slightly. We have about a 50-50 as far as male and female. We are working on those numbers. If you can also see, our African American and underrepresented populations have increased, and that has been a continuous growth. Last year we had 38% from underrepresented populations. You can see our African American numbers have gone up this year, which has also been an area of focus as well. About 9% of the population in Suffolk has been identified as gifted, and in typical programs it can be anywhere from 5 to 10%, so we fall somewhere in the middle for our district. Are there any questions on that data? Within the middle school, we continued implementation of the Enriched English 8 and Enriched World Geography 8 at all the middle schools. Last year was the first year of geometry offered in 8th grade. We had a 96% pass rate on the geometry SOL exam, and we also had the first year of earth science in 8th grade and a 97% pass rate on the earth science SOL exam. And that was in large part due to our content supervisors and specialists who helped assist teachers making that transition into high school level courses at the middle school and to provide support for those students. We also have an increased focus on pushing in all core areas. The gifted teachers currently service all areas with the exception of math occasionally, since most of those students are already accelerated in their coursework. And then we provide continued professional development for our gifted teachers. They do attend conferences that are local. They also do a lot of professional development with STEM activities as well. These are our current enrollment numbers for the Governor's School for the Arts. Suffolk has 5 specialty programs is what I consider it. So we have the IB program, the Governor's School for the Arts, Project Lead the Way at 2 schools, and of course we have the CCAP program as well. And so Governor's School for the Arts is a regional governor's school that our students participate in. We have a certain number of allocated slots. We are actually over our number, but they continue to allow us to go slightly over what we are allocated. And we do fill those slots every year. There is a wait list every year for Suffolk. In our IB program, you can see our numbers from 2017-18 and 2018-19. With this program, you do note the difference in the diploma rate for last year was a lot lower than our previous year. Our previous year, we had a diploma rate of 78.6%, which was the highest that we had had in the history of the IB program. This last year, it was 13%, which was an anomaly year. A lot of those students withdrew from the program during their 10th grade, after their 10th grade year. So we do find that as an anomaly year. We do see an increase. If you look at our enrollment, we have quite a few students coming up for the next year, as you'll see on the next slide, that we have currently 26 seniors, and we do anticipate that number to be significantly higher. There has been some transition of instructors within the IB program, but the continuity of the leadership that we have in Mr. Stewart Jones has helped to kind of quell that. He provides a lot of resources, PLCs, which are professional learning communities for the group, and provides training for all of the new teachers that we have come in. Are there any questions on that data? Project Lead the Way Engineering, which is housed in Ansman River. You see our numbers from last year and our numbers from this year. We did have quite a few juniors who dropped either due to academic performance or withdrawal from Suffolk Public Schools due to military transfers or transferring to a different school. The Biomedical Sciences program. We did have quite a few students who have withdrawn. The majority of the students who have withdrawn, we find, from the biomedical science program is due to being homesick, so to speak. It is at Lakeland, and we do have some difficulty, which we are working on, with students feeling it's quite a distance if they live on a different end of the city. So we're working on some ways that we can increase those numbers of students who are interested in going. It is a great program, as you heard from Mr. Skinner. Our teachers are top rated. The students who attend love the program, and they are really a close-knit family. So we're working on ways that we can increase those numbers. For this upcoming school year, we do have 14 freshmen, 12 sophomores, 12 juniors, and 17 seniors. Our advanced placement numbers. This is total enrollment, students enrolled in advanced placement classes at each of the buildings. You can see, of course, Nansemond River is the highest populated building, and they do have the highest number of enrollment in AP courses. And our AP exam results, so of the 514 students who are enrolled in AP courses, 292 took the exams, and we had 61% of those students who scored a 3 or higher. And of course, that is an increase from last year. Last year we had a 50% pass rate on 3 or higher. We also had 31 AP scholars who were recognized throughout the city. And lastly, our dual enrollment numbers. You can see that they have steadily increased, particularly at Lakeland and Kings Fork. Lakeland was able to find a teacher last year who was a classroom teacher who was also able to teach the dual enrollment, so that increased their numbers as well. And of course, Nansemond River increased as well with the addition of some other classes. Any questions?
Questions?
Dr. Lawson Davenport, can you report on how many students attended the summer residential governor schools?
We did not have any attend the summer residential this last year. We had 2 candidates, but we didn't have any attend. They were not chosen.
Okay, could you include that in your report
Sure.
from now on?
Sure.
And I'd like to thank you. There was a time when I served as chair of the Gifted Advisory Council, and year after year, we talked about getting the earth science and the honors classes into the 8th grade. And, I'd like to thank you for whatever part you played in that accomplishment, because I'm sure it's provided a great offering for those students. And I appreciate it as a board member that you've been able to initiate that.
I think the T&L team, the teaching and learning team, was very instrumental in that, particularly the content supervisors to be on board and do the planning to allow for those courses to be added to the middle school.
I have one question about the participation level in the Gifted Advisory Program. About how many members do you have?
Depends on the meeting. Typically, no more than 10 come, but as you can see, I'm not sure if you all have the list of names that we're sending forward for this year. We have representatives from almost all the schools, but they don't always attend.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Davenport. Dr. Harrison?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would like to turn your attention to the calendar of special events, and I'm just going to go through and highlight the special events for the month of October. Of course, as shared previously, this is National Bullying Prevention Month. This is also Disability Awareness Month and National Principals Appreciation Month for the month of October. During the week of October 6th through 12th, we are recognizing National Fire Prevention Week. Of course, we are also in the midst of Peanut Fest, October 10th through 13th. October 14th through the 18th is National School Lunch Week. It's also Grandparents Week in Suffolk Public Schools. On October 18th, we invite the community to come out and support our Suffolk Education Foundation's golf tournament. Also, the 21st to the 25th is National School Bus Safety Week. The 23rd is Bus Driver and Aid Appreciation Day. The 23rd through the 31st is National Red Ribbon Week. And Saturday, November 17th, is our College and Career Readiness Fair, which we also invite all of our high school and middle school families out to that event. And then very special events we have coming up that I'd like to draw your attention to. We have our Meet the Superintendent series, where we'd like to invite our community out to spend some time hearing the vision of our new superintendent, Dr. Gordon. And those dates are Tuesday, October 15th at 7 p.m. at Nansemond River High School, Wednesday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. at Lakeland High School, and then Monday, October 28th, 7 p.m. at Kings Fork High School. And Madam Chair, that concludes the calendar of special events.
Thank you very much. Next item of business, the consent agenda. Everyone will look at those items listed. This is an action item.
Madam Chair, is it possible if we could remove the following items and table them to the next meeting to give us time to review it? Those items would be items 8 through 14 and item 16. And we just table it to the October meeting.
All the resolutions? Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
8 through 16 you're talking about,
It's 8 through 14 and item 16.
and item 16.
Can I ask a question? And I don't know if Dr. Whitley needs to answer it. Will that hold up our job coach program if we don't approve these this evening? Because these are all the memorandum of understanding for the job coach with the special needs students in high school who go out to work.
I do know that, and I'm not sure about the job memorandums, but I do know that there are some of these that are time sensitive. For example, the one that involves the Lions Club, that's time sensitive. And I also believe the one that involves Virginia Gas is also time sensitive.
Ms. Whitley, can you answer the question? If we don't approve this tonight, will it affect the job coach program?
It would, because the students are supposed to start to go out to the work sites in November.
My reason is we didn't get them until, I didn't get it until later on today. I understand the reason why it was delayed, but I'm not going to vote on something that I haven't had the opportunity to read. That's voting blind.
Thank you, Dr. Whitley.
I guess number 3 to pull out because the school board minutes from September are not there.
I believe stated in that section, it says that all the August meetings were there, right?
Right, but not the September. Those August ones belong in the September meeting.
But they weren't there, so they were placed
Right,
in this.
but
So
the
would you
September,
look
the
Change that to school board minutes for August.
yeah, and August 8th is when we had our board meeting, is that correct? That is one is not
Was not
there.
included.
So August 8th isn't there, and the September meetings, our last September meeting is not there.
Okay, so you want to take out the minutes. We still haven't had a second for taking all of this out. Is there any a second, or go ahead and vote?
I mean, I didn't put it in the form of a motion, so it needs to be in the form of a motion?
I think right. I don't think anyone's made a motion yet.
No motion has been placed on the floor.
Madam Chair, I move that we remove items 8 through 14 and item 16, as well as item 3, from the consent agenda, and have that moved to our next scheduled meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Member Mayo,
No.
Board Member Mitnick,
No?
Board Member Riddick,
Yes.
Board Member Story,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brooks Buck,
No.
Chairman Byram.
No.
Motion is denied.
Just one comment on number 8. If we don't do this now, then we slow up the progress at the Operations Center. Virginia Natural Gas has waited for 2 months for this. So we don't want to put them in a position where they can't run our gas line, and that pushes back everything else.
Do we need to make another motion to approve?
Madam Chair, the motion
I was-
has denied, so
Right, so we.
we're still moving forward as planned. So we understand what you're saying, Mr. Napier. However, I'm going to just say this. In order for us to be as an effective board, and I do understand things happen, we need to receive these materials well in advance. Because just as your people have deadlines, we have to get the material and be able to review and be able to make an informed decision. And me personally, going forward tonight to vote on items that I haven't had an opportunity to review, that's not moving in the best interest of us as a division.
If we know that we have time-sensitive things, it doesn't look like we have a choice. If there is some type of issue, maybe we can work it out later, but since that vote has already been made, do I need to make another motion to approve, or is it assumed that we are approving and moving forward?
You need to have a motion on approving the consent agenda.
Okay, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of the school board minutes that are not there. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board
Can
Member
I
May?
ask a question? In looking at the committee membership, item number 5, my question is to Mr. Skinner. Are you still here? I'd like to know about the parent participation in the CTE advisory board.
And I guess too that brings up another thing that we're talking about who is on these committees. We're voting on that later that we talked about.
Right.
So maybe that should be pulled out to be addressed at a later time too, because we are voting after the fact of these new the membership of these new committees. So we're sort of voting on this before, it says 1920, but coming up here, we're going to be voting on from the policy committee, right? The membership for these committees.
Mr. Wallace.
The motion on the floor is to approve the consent agenda. If the motion is denied, or if someone wants to amend the motion to remove item number 5, which is the committee membership, then you can have some discussion on that. But right now, there is really no discussion on the consent agenda items unless it's been removed from the consent agenda. So if Mr. Mitnick, if he's concerned about item number 5, the committee appointments, the committee membership, the appropriate way to deal with that is to ask that the motion to approve the consent agenda be amended to remove that item from the consent agenda so there can be some discussion on it.
Kind of moved into it so quickly that,
Right, I understand.
is it okay to make a motion at this time?
We're in the middle of a vote.
Yeah, that's what I didn't.
It went so quickly, it wasn't.
Yes, it did. We didn't have.
No one was asked if there was any question.
We have a motion on the floor in a second, right? Yes.
Would you like for me to amend the motion, withdraw it and amend it? Because we've been talking about these committees for quite some time, since January.
This is the first time
committee
we've seen the
membership.
membership of the 1920 committees.
Well, there's nothing we can do to change them if they're already there and they exist. So if we are talking about changing the committee, I just want to know specifically what it is we're doing, because since January, we've talked about structuring committees and the number of people on the committees and whatever else, and it really doesn't take that long to make that decision. But if there is an amendment that you'd like for me to make, I'd be willing to withdraw this and amend it to include 5. And the reason that I will is because if that's a concern, I don't have a problem with it, but I do want to continue with these things that are time sensitive. We have some business we have to finish. Would
I
you like for
agree,
me to
Dr.
do that?
Brooks Buck. I would like item number 5 removed from the consent agenda to be discussed.
I will withdraw the motion and make another one. Okay, so we're talking about item number 5 and item number 3. Number 3, is that correct? So I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of items 3 and 5.
I will second the motion.
No further comments? Board Member Jenkins?
Yes.
Board Member Mayo?
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick?
Yes.
Board Member Riddick?
No.
Board Member Story?
Yes.
Vice Chair Brooks Buck?
Yes.
Chairman Byram?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under the consent agenda, can I ask a question on committee membership?
Yes.
Mr. Skinner, could you tell me that on your advisory committee for CTE, what is the parent participation?
We've had several of our committee members began or came to it prior to me coming in because their students were on there, and since probably have graduated out, and since we kind of just still go through looking for parents. At this particular, we've only had one meeting this school year and did not have a parent, did have a student. So
In your
certain
membership,
times.
do you have parents?
Have we ever had parents?
No,
Yes.
this year.
For this year, no. We've had one meeting, I think it was last week, 2 weeks, but we didn't have a parent representative.
Where do you publicize your meetings?
Well,
Because, yeah, where do you publicize the meetings?
Well, when I go through, or we go through the CTE courses, when we put information out or throughout the information that kind of goes out, we just make it readily available that people know that they can kind of come in, or they should know. How would they know? As students are enrolled in career and technical education programs, all teachers are telling our students as well, because they're part of the CTSOs, which are our career. So they're telling students, if you're wanting to be a part, that's how we get student participation. Make certain that your parents are involved. The same way we would probably do like PTA meetings. But we don't have anything specific that we send out for. I'm not certain about any program that we say we're looking for parent representatives. But when you're talking about enrolling CTSOs, that is part of the process for students and trying to bring parents, especially into the high school arena.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to express a concern on the lack of parental inclusion in the CTE advisory board. That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to unfinished business. Under that, we have update on mobile units. Dr. Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you may recall, in our last meeting, the board directed the staff to provide an update on mobile units and existing space usage at Nansemond River High School. And so we facilitated a meeting. Mr. O'Leary and Dr. Brown facilitated a meeting with staff to gain staff input, and Mr. Napier has since that time also done a full review of the land and the availability of mobile units and the cost it would take to provide mobile units to try to mitigate some of the space challenges that we've had at Nansemond River High School. So with that, I'd like to call to the podium Mr. O'Leary, principal of Nansemond River High School, proud principal of Nansemond River High School with a 95.5% graduation rate. I wanted to mention congratulations. It's a great way to start a presentation. And he's going to begin just by sharing an overview of their current space usage in the building, and then followed by a presentation from Mr. Napier on mobile units. Thank you.
Dr. Gordon, Dr. Harrison, Madam Chairman, Byram, board members, Mr. Waller. I am Daniel Leary, principal at Nansemond River High School, #WeAreNR. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to share some information with you. Before I do that, Dr. Gordon, on behalf of Nansemond River High School students, staff, administration, faculty, we are excited to have you here. We welcome you to Suffolk Public Schools, and we are ready to work and win with you. Just wanted to let you know that. A couple items. I was asked to be here tonight to talk about some of the examples of current strategies to efficiently use space at Nansemond River. We are not talking about space, we're also talking about the use of time as well. Currently, we have 1,580 students enrolled as of today. That number goes anywhere from 1,580 to 1,590 normally within the next couple weeks. It floats around that time. What we're going to talk about first, or that I'd like to share, is the cafeteria use. We added an additional lunch shift to the previous year's schedule, and that may not seem like a large item, but it certainly is. Traditionally, we've had 4 lunch shifts at the high school with a break in between each one. We were at capacity last year with 1,569 kids. That was about 400 students per shift, and the logistics behind that, when you schedule that, comes into play that you have to really go through and figure out how many kids are in each class, make sure you don't go over your capacity, and make it all work within 4. This year, we added a 5th lunch shift. We've compressed the time in between to none between lunch shifts in most cases. There is one that we have a 5-minute break in between, and that gives us the ability to get rid of some tables that were overcrowded in there. Opens up the space. Some ideas that came out of that were that those lunch lines did decrease dramatically. Our kids are getting through the lunch line instead of 15 or 20 minutes, now they're getting through in 5 to 7 minutes. Gives them more time to eat. We have less tables in the cafeteria. Again, it may not sound like a lot, and you have 320, 350 students in the cafeteria. The amount of noise is considerably lower. The ease of the students in the cafeteria, the tension level is quite low because we've had less kids in there. The students and the teachers have done a great job with this. They've been very flexible if we've had to make any changes. The lunches are stacked back to back. Our custodians have very little time to clean, but they have done an outstanding job to do that between those times. And we've had to be creative that certain parts of the building that come to the cafeteria do not interfere with other parts of the building as one is leaving, one is coming in. So we've had to be very creative with that too. We did want to note that has been one of our wins this year that we wanted to talk about. Classrooms, I believe that's probably the main reason why we're talking tonight. And we have the concept of floating versus the roommate concept. Floating, quite simply, is the concept is not new, and that is basically, stereotypically, a teacher is given a cart, moves to several different classes throughout their 5 or 6 block teaching sections. Mostly those are different classrooms each block. They don't have ownership of any one classroom. And normally a teacher that has a classroom would allow them to come in, graciously allow them to come in during one of the open periods of their classroom. And you can see in 2017 we had 5 true floating teachers, 2 math, 1 science, 1 CTE, and 1 foreign language. 2019 we had an increase of freshmen that increased our enrollment. We had 9 floating teachers, 3 English, 1 math, 1 science, 1 social studies, 2 CTE, and 1 foreign language. And in 2019-20, we have 2 true floating teachers, but we started the roommate concept. And basically what the roommate concept is that it's a different way to approach actually the same problem. And they actually will share a room. That roommate concept provides the same room to one teacher every other day for the entire day. And what we've tried to do is we have tried to make it a day that they have to float, if you want to call it that they don't have their room, to be very close to where they are. In most cases, we have. In some cases, it just can't work because of location of open classrooms. I can tell you that we have very few open classrooms during the school day at Nansemond River High School. In some cases, we have 1 to the most that we have 4 or 5 open classrooms. There's a little bit of flexibility with that, but again, you couldn't put 1 teacher in any one classroom to have another room to themselves. So with that said, I did want to note that the 2 floating teachers that we have, one is English and 1 is CTE. We have 9 pairs of roommates, 1 English, 1 science, 3 foreign language pairs, 1 CTE, 2 health and PE. And I want to note that those are actually pairs of 3, and 1 junior ROTC. And noted in there also is that the increase is due to full-time staff increase for English and CTE. which is good because our programs are growing. And the ones with the double asterisks, they have traditionally shared rooms for a very long time. Pretty much anywhere that you went, health teachers shared rooms. It's that same concept where they don't have to go ahead and be on a cart all day long. What we hope comes out of that is the goal is to promote classroom ownership. One is provide a collegial collaboration that otherwise wouldn't be there because they didn't share a room more than they did. And hopefully, the main one is teacher retention. Our new teachers come into the building. In some cases, they float. It's not a great situation as a new teacher to float. I think everyone would agree with that. We also want to make sure that they have a place that they can call their own. So that is one reason why one of the main reasons why we came up with the roommate concept. Last but not least, this includes classroom and space in general. And this is a slide that proved to me that I need to limit the amount of HGTV that the administrative team watches during the summertime, specifically Assistant Principal Janice Bibbo and Assistant Principal Tara Firth, who were vital in everything that we are talking about today. And I thank them for their hard work and their commitment to making space work, because we have created and repurposed a lot of spaces at Nansemond River High School. Most notably, we consulted with our SPS technology department. We removed 2 very underutilized desktop computer labs to create additional dedicated classroom space. Without doing that, we would have had additional teachers on that roommate and floating routine. The use of Chromebooks has allowed us to be very flexible for local and state testing, which is great. We don't have to rely on desktops anymore, and that was one great reason why we could go ahead and recreate those spaces. We repurposed existing office and storage space for use by multiple non-teaching staff. That basically does qualify as a roommate situation as well. In some cases, we have 3 or 4 people in a very small office space getting the job done. They do what they have to do at Nansemond River High School. We have created office space out of storage areas successfully. Again, refer back to the HGTV comment. We also have utilized space due to a reduction of CSEP enrollment for this year, and that helped us do an additional self-contained special education classroom and a small group testing area. Those are just some of the things that we've done to better utilize the available space that we have for the 1,500 to 80 to 1,590 students. We are looking next year, if the group of freshmen that comes through that I've been tracking ever since I was at the middle school, we are going to look at 1,707 kids at Nansemond River High School next year, if all holds true. Not to mention that there may be some construction going on in northern end of Suffolk that we haven't accounted for. I will try my best to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. O'Leary, first thing I'd like to thank you and your staff for all that you've done in making a bad situation as good as it can be. I received an invitation via social media to shadow one of your floating teachers, and Ms. Emma Conley is here today.
Roommate teacher, I believe.
Yeah, a roommate, excuse me. Yeah, she's one of the pairs in a sharing a room situation. And I shadowed her on the day that she did not have a classroom, and I found that because the administration was so creative, on the day that she would have normally been in 4 different rooms, they made sure that she had, on that day, her planning period is every day. She has that at first block, which meets every day. And she had a duty section that, so she only had 2 classes on the day that she was supposed to be going to additional rooms. Is it ideal? Certainly not. I did observe a loss of instructional time, because when you go into a classroom somebody else has it set up, there's some adjustment of furniture to meet your needs, and and that takes time to get your classroom ready. I did observe Ms. Conley in 2 classrooms that day. But another thing that I noticed is it takes a special kind of teacher. And, to be able to share a room and, to be able to float. And I just want to commend you and your staff for making the best of what is not a great situation. And your staff was very forthcoming, and they were also very forthcoming in praise for Ms. Firth and Ms. Bibbo for the work that they put into making these shared classrooms work. I'd just like to thank you for helping to put this together. I learned a lot that day. And again, this wasn't anything that I sought out. It was an invitation that I received. And I was glad to accept the invitation because I didn't think the board should be making any decisions when we didn't have firsthand knowledge of what was going on. I'd also like to comment that that day I was there, I met with the CSEP teachers in the building. I got a better understanding of their program, and they have 2 classrooms. They're small numbers, but they're also smaller rooms. But thank you, sir, and I just wanted to share that information with the rest of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Mitnick. Anyone else? Any
Mr.
questions?
O'Leary, I think I've known you for quite some time. As a matter of fact, I had a student with you for 3 years, and you didn't have 104% student body. You had 150% student body when we first met. So the interest was for us about the mobile units. Do you prefer, after you met with your staff, that was the question that we had asked after you met with the staff, is that something that you'd like to pursue? I've known you not to be a shy person, so I assumed if you were looking for mobile, you would have shared that with us, so I didn't know. And
I think deeper discussion needs to happen. It answers part of a question, it creates more questions, but it also does not address the fact that it doesn't address restrooms, it doesn't address cafeteria size, does not address one gym for all time. We don't have an auxiliary gym that we can split up PE classrooms. That in itself, I believe we need to have further discussion on, and I would be more than happy to do that with mobile units. As you know, I had 18 when I was lucky to be at John Yates. That worked. I believe it is a different scenario at middle school and elementary. A little bit more control over students at that point, teachers walking in and out. But I think it leads to some very good discussion at the high school. It takes care of, I believe, one of the problems.
Mr. O'Leary, I appreciated hearing the discussion of some of the teachers, and again, I compliment the atmosphere. I felt that teachers were really willing to do and sacrifice for their other teammates, and that was
amazing group.
They are, and I think that was excellent. I think many of them said to me, I will volunteer if it gives, I will go to I will willingly, and some said, yeah, I'd like to be in a mobile unit if it means other teachers are not traveling. And so I got a very positive feel from them in being willing to do that. As long as what I heard, and you can tell me if this is what you heard, as long as the discussion continues and doesn't stop with, okay, now we're just going to put you all in mobiles and forget about it. And I think they want the conversation to continue is what I heard. But
I would agree with you, and I think I would agree with that as well as building principle, that we do need to have further discussion,
right.
Deeper discussion, to logistics and some other
exactly.
items.
I heard that, yeah.
Because teachers in mobile units wouldn't, traditionally what we had done in the past, in my experience with Forest Glen, who had 12 to 15 mobile units when I was there as principal, to Yates, we ended up with 18. We traditionally tried to keep the numbers going out of the building very low. So teachers that had 150, 175 on their roll probably wouldn't be our first choice to put outside the mobile unit, even though they may want to be in the mobile unit. So there's a lot of logistics and a lot of discussion
Right.
that we still have to have, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Before I leave, I just wanted to thank Dr. Harrison. In the interim, you have done an amazing job. So thank you on behalf of Nansemond River and probably all of Suffolk Public Schools.
Sir, and I want to add, great job, and kind of echoing Mr. Mitnick's comments earlier, the creativity that you and your staff have demonstrated throughout this whole process. I would encourage you to stop watching as much HGTV, but
I would agree with that.
but it has been remarkable, the ideas that you've come up with to mitigate the situation with space. And I did want to just add, as Mr. Napier's coming to the podium, just some additional discussion that we've had regarding, as we move forward for next year, some additional considerations in addition to the mobile units that are being discussed. I would like to propose to the board that we consider an overall review of our master schedules division-wide to see if there's some efficiencies that we can gain from centralizing some courses that might be under-enrolled. We do have CCAP that could be a potential location for a centralized location for some courses, but I would recommend to the board that we have a third party come in to review our master schedules division-wide to help us really investigate some of those efficiencies and leverage that moving forward to help mitigate some of the space challenges. And there's also an additional space. I know Mr. O'Leary probably doesn't want me to mention this, but he does have a space in his building that I'd love to have some further conversation about. We had a shop room at John F. Kennedy this past school year that was converted from a shop room to a really state-of-the-art STEM lab space. And so what it did in that situation, it freed up a classroom because now that particular teacher is actually utilizing the STEM lab, and that did free up an additional space at JFK. So just some additional things for us to consider as we move forward. And with that, thank you again, Mr. O'Leary. Great job. And
Thank you.
Mr. Napier?
So we will pursue some of these ideas, such as the master schedule. Yeah.
Great.
And bringing in a third party.
That would be my recommendation, and I had an opportunity
Okay.
to discuss it with Dr. Gordon as well. And, I know he has a lot of experience with 4x4 block scheduling, and just there are a lot of other opportunities that we can at least explore that might help mitigate some of the challenges that we're having with space in some of our facilities. Great, thank you. Mr.
Okay.
Napier?
Good evening, again. Sorry for the interruption earlier. That was kind of a big deal for us, the whole Virginia natural gas thing. We talked last month about mobile units and possibly relocating mobile units. We talked last month, I believe, about 8 or 10 mobile units. Since that time, we have gone out, we've looked at the site, we've talked to contractors, we've talked to Dominion Power, and we've come up with some solid numbers. We have based all of our calculations on 10 mobile units being relocated. As you can see, some of the things that we had to consider, we are going to have to put these units directly behind the building on what is currently an athletic practice field. I know they use it for football. I'm sure they use it for other things as well. There are goalposts there. We're not sure that we would have to actually do anything if it's 10 or 12, 8 or 10 or 12 mobile units that we move with those goalposts. There's some other considerations, underground utilities. We know there's an electric line, a Dominion Power line that runs back there that goes out to the parking lot for parking lot lights. We think we can work around that. There is some stormwater piping that runs through there somewhere. We're certain we can work around that. But there's also a sprinkler system that was put in, an irrigation system that we probably can't work around. But when you weigh these things, that's a relatively minor consideration. It's just that we're going to tear that thing apart, basically, when we go to put these mobile units in there. And that's fine. We'll just abandon it in place, and if we ever reach a point in the future where we need that field again, we'll just go back and fix it or put in a new one. So we do have a space back there that's approximately 525 feet long by 180 feet wide, give or take. That is certainly enough room for us to put as many mobile units as we would like back there. The actual unit locations and where Mr. O'Leary would like them and how he would access his building, we would work with him on that. We certainly want whatever is most expedient for students to get in and out. We don't want them spread too far, as he said, but he's going to have a job controlling that, so we're going to allow him to guide us if we do this and where we actually place those units. There is a current fire panel in that building, and this becomes important later on. Mobile units have to have fire alarm protection just like classrooms do. To do that, we have to tie all the wiring into the existing panel that's already at the building. We have had our fire alarm contractor, BFPE, take a look at that panel for us. They think there's enough room on the panel. What they aren't sure of, given the panel is obsolete. And when I say obsolete, it's just old. It still works. But the number that they gave us is assuming that everything is good with the current fire panel. So keep in mind, if it isn't, there would be another cost associated with all of this to upgrade the current fire panel. We're hoping that would not be the case, but that is a possibility. As I said, we base these estimates, and these are real numbers. We aren't guessing at these anymore. We base these estimates on 10 mobile units. As you can see, the cost for us just to relocate them to the site from various other sites around the division, $40,000 for 10 mobile units. We talked to Dominion Power. They gave us an estimate of approximately $25,000 to get power to the site. Now, that doesn't get power to the mobile units. We would go from the Virginia power line to one of our panels that we would set on site. We would run from that panel to the mobile units ourselves. That saves us cost, and it also saves us time. Asphalt walkways, which would have to be put in not only to each mobile unit, but also to wherever Mr. O'Leary decides to access the building from those mobile units, would have to be put in. We've talked to somebody that does that for us. We're estimating that at $12,000. Skirting, which is what we use to close up the bottoms of these mobile units, that's required by city code. That is an optional for us, $5,000 just to do that. Our connection costs, if our electricians go from the Virginia Power connection to the mobile units, is approximately $1,000 per unit. So that's $10,000 for our electricians to hook up these units. The technology connections that Mr. Littlefield would have to put in, we're estimating them also at $40,000. Stairs, which is what is required, would run us $7,000. Each one of these units has 2 doors. Each door has to have a stairway. That is the cheapest way to go. We're going to talk about ramps in a minute, but that does increase the cost substantially. But just so you're aware, the things we're looking at on this slide, these are the things that are required for us to put a mobile unit there, set it up, and allow students to go in it and use it as a classroom. Anything beyond that we can certainly do, but it's not going to be required under permit or under code for us to do anything more. So this is a minimal cost we're talking about here. Fire alarm connections, we're estimating those at $9,000. That's for all the mobile units, not for one. And then we've talked about teacher desk, chairs, file cabinets. At our last discussion, I probably assumed we had those things at Nansemond River that we could move. I didn't realize that all these teachers were on carts. So there is an $11,500 cost to equip these units with teacher desks, teacher chairs, file cabinets, the things that classroom teachers need, for a subtotal of $159,500. So that is the minimum cost for us to relocate these mobile units and make them usable. Additional instructional costs. As you know, currently we use Chromebook carts in our classrooms. If we put 10 of those, one in each mobile unit, that's an additional $81,000. That brings the total cost to $240,500. As you can see, we have estimated, if we drop back to, and that actually shouldn't be 8 Chromebook carts estimate. That should be just 8 units estimated. We drop that cost back to $192,400. If we increase it from 10 to 12, we're at approximately $288,600. So that's the range of costs that we're at. Add-on alternatives. These are the things that we could do that we aren't required to do by any code. Painting, interior. We talked to our painting contractor to paint all 10 mobile units inside, $10,410. To paint all of the mobile units on the exterior, and this is something that we normally don't do, $5,950. Aluminum ramps. We don't have aluminum ramps on all of our mobile units currently. We do have a lot of them that have them. Primarily, unless we have a student or a staff member that requires a ramp, this is primarily so we can get AV equipment in and out of the units. That's an additional $45,000 for us to put one ramp on each unit. We could put one ramp and keep one set of wooden stairs, but the ramps themselves, so you would lose half the cost of the stairs, which is about $3,500, but you're going to be adding $45,000 to put aluminum ramps on them. These things are very expensive. They certainly are very convenient, and we have them on a lot of units, but like I said, we don't have them on all of our units. Wooden ramps, we could go that route for about half the cost of aluminum ramps. The problem with that, and I don't know if it would be a problem, given as old as our units are, but once you put up a wooden ramp or a wooden set of stairs, we cannot remove that from that mobile unit and use it anywhere else ever again. That is not allowed under code. That's the difference between wood and aluminum. Aluminum ramps, we can set them up, we can take them down, we can reuse them as many times as we like. So really, over the course of time, and most of our mobile units, just keep in mind, are 30 years old at this point. They've been around a long time. So we've moved them over the years. It has been cheaper for us to have aluminum ramps, but in this case, I'm not sure we have enough life left in those units that if we set them at Nansemond River, after 3, 4, 5 years from now, I'm not sure we can take these units anywhere else again. They're that old. New student desks and chairs, as you know, we've been putting student furniture in classrooms at schools as we can pay for it. If we were to put those same items in these mobile units, that would be an additional cost of approximately $75,000. The alternative to that, we do have furniture that's surplus and is sitting at Driver Elementary School at the moment. We can pull, I think we have 300 usable desks and chairs in there easily. We could pull that out. We could put those in the mobile units at no cost other than us moving it over there. So those are the costs. Those are accurate costs at this point. We talked last month. There was a $100,000 number that I threw out, but that was simply to get the mobile units there. We didn't know about some of these other costs at that point. So the cheapest we can do this right now is $159. If we go with the Chromebook carts, and I know that's important on the instructional side, but if we go with that, we're up to $240. So it's just a question of, is it affordable? It's certainly doable from our side. It just comes down to, is this the best thing to do at this point, and can we pay for it? Questions about any of that?
Questions?
If we had magically all this money, and if somehow we could do all this, and if it all worked, how long would it take to do this?
Well, at this point, we've missed the window for second semester. There's no way we can get it done by January. My best guess at this point would be March. And like we talked about before, the big holdup usually is electrical power. And it has taken us upwards of 3 to 4 months to get mobile units hooked up by Dominion Power. So that's the big question mark whenever we do this. Whether it's one mobile or it's 100, we got to have Dominion Power get us a feed to that site, and they have to engineer it. This takes forever. They're very busy. We're an important customer, but we're not their biggest customer.
Other questions?
Mr. Napier, do you see any other solution to the problem at Nansemond River overcrowding?
And I hate to even go and answer this question, but this is a short-term solution. This is not a long-term solution by any means. So at some point, even if we do this, this will take care of the immediate need, I think, and that's important. So I'm saying for that reason, we probably should consider it strongly. But as was mentioned earlier, my fear is if we put these mobile units there, now we have all this extra space. I'm not worried about the school board or our people or Mr. O'Leary and his people not talking about this again. I'm worried about other bodies not talking about this again because we've cured the problem by sticking all these mobile units over there, and we really have not. These things, I'm not kidding, these things are 30 years old. They don't have a lot of life left in them. And for us to replace mobile units, that runs between $50,000 and $60,000 per mobile unit. So that's really not a viable option either. So if you really want to talk long-term solutions, to me, there's two. You either build another building, and then we rezone for that, or we look very hard at how we might rezone the three that we have. And I don't even know if that's doable at this point. We'd have to look at that really hard and see what we could do with that. But those would be more long-term solutions than mobile units. This is going to take care of the problem today. It's not going to take care of the problem a year from now or 2 years from now.
I remember when we had the presentation about the rezoning several years ago, and
Yes.
we talked about the fact that because of the location of Nansemond
Yes.
River and Kings Fork,
Yes, very
we'd be
difficult.
moving like 40 students from one place to another, which wouldn't solve a problem at all.
Yes, and for us to go, the way it's set up now, where our high schools are located, where the housing, where the neighborhoods are, for us to rezone any significant number of students out of Nansemond River is going to be very painful for a lot of people. That cluster around that school, I think we would have to impact that. And I would hate to be the one that has to tell somebody, you can sit in your backyard and look at the school, but you got to go to school way over there somewhere. That's difficult for people to accept. But I think the reality is, for us to do anything with rezoning with our current locations, we would really have to look at doing something like that. It's a difficult choice to make.
Mr. Napier, to quote Mr. Leroy Bennett, our assistant, our
Vice Mayor.
vice mayor, thank you. He said, it's a tough decision, but you need to do it. And, you know, I still really think the mobile units in connection with rezoning is a move that we're going to have to look at seriously. And if any board member up here is going to be affected by rezoning at Nansemond River, it's going to be me. But I tell you, I'm fully support rezoning to take care of Nansemond River.
Anyone else?
I want to thank you for your report, but I also want to say I don't see that our number of students is going to get any lower because Suffolk is building houses every week.
I agree with that 100%.
And so,
Yeah,
you
they're
know,
everywhere.
it's something we have to do. Like you said, we have to do something now. We can't wait, whether it's the mobile units or whatever. You're going to end up turning a bus into a classroom because the students are going to come, the kids are going to come, and it's not just that high school. Our schools are going to be overcrowded. We built new schools, and the first day they were overcrowded. So we have to do something. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Doing a great job, but we just have to be prepared. If we want to be the school system in the city where we want people to come, we have to have adequate space for them to come to. Just simple as that.
Well, and mobile units are considered temporary classrooms. Ours are 30 years old. That is not temporary. Somebody's looking at mobile units as being permanent. It's not you, and it's not us.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is it possible that in your discussions with our mayor and the other members of council, as well as our city manager, and looking at future development, if we can mirror that of the city of Chesapeake, that when you allow a new developer to develop a new residential space, that you ask them to tie in to some responsibility on the stress that they put on the school system, because that's what we're dealing with. Our city is allowing development to add stress on our current structure, but we're not expanding as rapidly as we hope to in order to handle the new influx of residents coming into the city. But for an immediate addressing of the situation, not a long-term solution, as Mr. Napier has said, we do need to rezone. If that means shifting students from Kings Fork High School to Lakeland and some students from Nansemond River over to Kings Fork High School, eventually, like Mr. Mitnick said, we're going to have to make that conversation. But the conversation cannot just be a school board conversation. It needs to be a conversation that ties into the city's capital improvement plan, and because we can rezone and rezone, but if they're just allowing development on top of development on top of the development to come in, the city is going to continue to grow, and we can continue to face the same problem with limited resources. So I understand the task ahead. It's just that we have to move strategically at addressing this. So rezoning, as well as asking our city council members to tack a piece on to those developers as well.
Mr. Riddick's referring to proffers, and our city
Can't do
does
that.
do that. I don't know to what degree they do that, but I know that contractors have, either you buy land or, however they work out the whole proffer system when a contractor comes in and builds a residential neighborhood, but they do engage in that practice. But we would have to get that information from them. I don't know to what degree it's done, how it's done, or how much is thrown in there by a contractor.
I agree. That's why we need to have that conversation, because the way things has been done in the past, it shows where we are today. It's not working. So therefore, we got to look to a new system. And I believe Chesapeake is paving the way with their, requiring the developers to either help add on a school or renovate. We know we don't have that revenue right now to just take from our funds and solve the problem. So if you want to do business in the city and you want the luxury of having an excellent school system, you're going to have to add some more stake in the fire. I remember when they was talking about developing out the way towards Whaleyville, the developer included a new middle school site as well. So I know that's something that can and has been done and discussed. It's just to what extent for us, that's the job of our superintendent and the chairwoman, and getting that part done. I think we can get it done. It's just we're going to have to start being adamant and having those conversations now, not a couple years down the road.
I would just like to add, it's my understanding, and I know I mentioned that, Mr. Riddick, in a meeting, I guess, maybe a couple of years ago now, it may have been last year, but I was told that the General Assembly there was some type of provisional law or something against proffers, because that was my suggestion, if somebody, because I thought we could still do that. I don't know that it's done in there. I'm sure it's done some kind of way if it's going to be done, but it may not be done by just saying, if you want to build here, you've got to build us, save us some space for a school. Because I had the same suggestion, Mr. Riddick, but I was told that it was averse to some Virginia state provision that had been advanced by the General Assembly. So I'm not sure. That might be something to look into.
And another part of this is capacities, and we're getting ready to look at capacities with our study, but the city has a set of capacity numbers for our buildings. We have a different set of capacity numbers for our buildings. So I think what happens sometimes, if those numbers aren't the same, and on many of our buildings they are not, the city may think that they have a capacity that they don't. And, on the other hand, some of our numbers, some of theirs are higher, some of ours are lower, vice versa. But we need to come together on what that capacity number is, and everybody needs to be dealing with that. And I think we're about to do something about that.
I thought that was part of
It is.
Okay, that is part of the study that's being done, is to come to a consensus with a third party.
That's
right.
And I would add, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's not just something pass over to somebody else. When we have joint meetings with City Council, there was the opportunity to bring those issues up. I think Mr. Mitnick mentioned that at the last joint meeting we had July 7th. Was it July 17th?
17th.
Yeah, he brought that up during July 17th. We were looking at how much money the city had to invest and whatever we could do to build whatever we need. But I'm in full agreement that with everybody that we need to be working closely with the city with regard to where they're building, because often when it appears that in the past we've of course been behind the curve, because I know for the 7 years, we did one full year at Colonel Fred Cherry.
Yes.
And I know that from the time I joined the board in 2013, I complained about the overcrowding at John Yates because it was 150% full. And I remember that Mr. Copeland, in his speech when we opened Pioneer Elementary, said it took 22 years to get the school. They've been asking for 22 years. So it's not something that I know is going to be in our immediate future, that we're going to have to do whatever it is we do. It ought to be, it should be. I agree, I don't have a problem with that. But we are looking at where we spend our dollars, and it would be wonderful if we were in one accord with regard to how much we actually can get, how much the city can borrow, and what we can use it for.
Well, yes, and part of that is we have to stop, not us so much, but the city as well. We have to stop thinking in terms of what can be built today and fill up today. There's been a reluctance in the past
Absolutely.
to build empty classrooms. Well, if you don't build empty classrooms, you're going to fill a building up real quick, and then you're going to have mobile units.
Absolutely.
Well, it's cheaper to build an empty room now than it is go back to Northern Shores and build 20 rooms 25 years later.
Absolutely.
So that discussion's been had over the years. There's never been any interest in talking about that when it comes to funding. But we have to get out of this idea that we're not going to build empty classrooms, because if we don't, this problem will never go away.
Absolutely.
As long as we keep building houses, apartments, and all these things that we build.
Right.
I mean, they're good things. It's good for the city. It's not so good for us.
I agree. Madam Chair, I just ask, by you being the official board voice of the board, that you and Mayor Johnson follow up and have a conversation and just share some of our concerns. I know conversation has been had where all of us had an opportunity to speak, and I utilized my opportunity with those council members one-on-one. However, I think they see the importance more so now, considering this bill, that it would cost us to put a Band-Aid on the situation, not actually treating it. So if we can just take this back to her, hey, this is our solution for 10 units, not including the new development that you all are doing out there and what that's going to bring us. So
I think the city had agreed to meet with us quarterly, and so October, we're due for a meeting. So if you would talk with the mayor, and I think that we're due for a meeting to come up. Based on quarterly, it's been 4 months since we met. So now with a new superintendent, July, August, September, October, yeah. I see Ms. Connor counting on her fingers. Has it really been that long? I think it's good. We're ready for another discussion, even if it occurs in November. And with the new superintendent, I'd really like you to move forward and schedule that joint meeting again.
I think also the feasibility study that's, in the works, I think that's going to be a revelation to a lot of people, because I think when we did our previous study about job compensation study, that was, we knew what the story was going to be before it was done. And I think most of us know what this is going to show to a certain extent. But I think the city needs to realize that when we do allow growth to continue, that we have to realize the schools are put in a very difficult position, as Mr. Napier said. And I look forward to Dr. Gordon and myself.
Who's going to solve all our problems.
And Dr. Buck, we will meet with the city and discuss these issues in detail. Right, Dr.
Ms.
Gordon? Yes.
Could I ask a question? It seems that, I think from the data, I don't go back on the board, but it seems like the last 4 to 5 years, not this year, but start going back, and that the actual population of the schools has been at 14,000 for a long time. What happened? You know what I'm saying? I mean, actually, our number of students in the district has not really increased.
Actually dropped. But it's not a question of how many, it's a question of where they're at.
So we've had a decrease in some areas.
Not many, a few.
But the population has stayed within a very small thing. So that, I think, has hampered the idea of building or whatever planning out, because they see that the population hasn't changed for years. Now, I think it's going to, but it's an odd thing that the actual population of the school district hasn't increased.
It hasn't. But the other part of that is the programming that we offer has increased. So now you're taking up classroom space that you probably didn't take up 10 or 15 or 20 years ago with all of these new programs that we are either required or we do it because it's the right thing to do. They need space too. So now you have less space to work with in your general ed classrooms. So it's not just numbers, it's how are we using the buildings, what kind of programs are we putting in there, and where are all these students located?
Thank you.
I think that goes back to what Dr. Harrison said previously about a third party possibly coming in and looking at that master schedule. To look at it, someone who has authority in that, to see where we can tighten up some of those things, possibly, there are some.
That's right. There are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, there's some
we can
opportunity
leverage.
there. Right.
Yeah.
So we need to look at everything.
And
Yes.
that coupled with our facility study, I think will make a huge difference in terms of providing the information that the board and that the city council will need moving forward to operate in a strategic manner in making these long-term decisions. So thank you very much, Mr. Napier.
Thank you.
Very much. Any
Madam
other
Chair,
thing on that?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move, it's a two-part motion. I'd like to move that we move ahead with 10 mobile units for Nasman River High School as a Band-Aid, and that we also explore the option of rezoning the high schools to accommodate the overcrowding at Nasman River and Kings Fort.
I have a question then. I thought that after we talked to the principal, we just said that they were going to have some more discussions about options they have. That's one. And we're talking almost $300,000 that I don't know where it's in our budget to move ahead with that. So that won't address the problem this year, when in fact next year we might need 20 if Mr. O'Leary's projections are correct. So instead of 10, it might need more than that if we're talking about an additional 2,000 students. So I just have a concern about moving ahead with that, especially since we know it's going to cost quite a bit of money, and we don't yet know if other solutions are going to make the problem go away for right now, because we're talking about $250,000 plus, and it's just going to be a temporary fix.
I share that concern, because based off the timeline that was given, you will not be able to access and utilize those units. It's projected to begin March.
Next year.
So that's 3 months of, 2.5 months of usage to spend those type of funds for a temporary solution. I think we need to get more information as to what those projections are, so we can spend one time. If we're gonna put a Band-Aid, let's make sure the Band-Aid is the right size Band-Aid. Because if we spend now and only have 10, as Dr. Buck said, and then it turns out we need another 5 more.
It was a two-part motion because I did include the necessity for rezoning. And hand in hand, it may work to provide the need that exists now.
So are we going to rezone in the middle of the school year?
Well, Mr. O'Leary stood up here and told us what the projection of the numbers are for Nasman River. So if it's not ready for the middle of this year, which would be perfect, but we've been told it's not going to happen, make it happen for the beginning of next year. And if you look in the documents in our board packet, there's still extra money sitting from the construction of Fred Cherry and Florence Bowser, almost $500,000.
We agreed to pay $350,000 for the study.
Nobody has told us what our part of that is yet.
Ms. Forsman, yes.
I'd like to call to the podium Wendy Forsman, our Executive Director of Finance, to address that.
The money that's left over currently for the two projects has been, part of it has been obligated to go towards the facility study, which we don't know the cost of yet. We believe it's somewhere in the $350,000 range. However, we don't have a project on the CIP that's been approved through the whole CIP process with the city in order to move that money and use that money for this type of a project. This type of a project where we currently sit right now would have to be operating fund money. It will be next February before the CIP is complete. We've just made our, put our submittal for the next year in. They're in process already. If you remember last year when we did the change to Northern Shores, they didn't include it because they were already in process. So we wouldn't be able to even put this in the process at this point, I don't believe, in order for it to be approved in February, for it to be available in July. So it would be, you would be looking at operating funds.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is there room in operating funds?
I don't believe that it's a question of room, it's a question of priority. And of course, as a priority, if the board directs us to, we would make it a priority. We'd have to be closer to year end because we are a long way from year end at this moment. And if we have a boiler that goes down or an HVAC system that goes down, as you know, we're in process of replacing those. They're very expensive. I'm not sure at this point that it would be prudent to obligate those funds, especially knowing we can't get the units online before school really ends at this point. You're looking at March, so it's really not going to make a huge difference for current fiscal year. So for my purposes, whatever this board directs us to do, we're going to do, but I just don't see it being prudent financially to obligate the funds at this moment for something until we get a little further along in the year and know that we can identify the funds with fidelity.
I think a point of order. I wish we had a second and then a discussion.
There should have been a second.
There should have been a second and then a discussion. So I second the motion, but now I want to continue the discussion. I think, David, I really wanted the trailer thing to work. My huge concern is that much money in 30-year-old trailers. That, if they were 10-year-old trailers, even 20, but 30-year-old trailers, that really scares me. Just in terms of really what condition are they going to be by the time they get there. And I really like some ideas. I've been thinking of some of those ideas that Dr. Harrison brought up. I'm just not quite persuaded that that's the way to go with that much money with the trailers that are that old. That really dissuades me from that. But I also would like to have more discussion, like a task force maybe put together so that there's more board discussion with members of the admin and community between now and the study, that there's more information flowing. Because it is very difficult when you hear from teachers that are very frustrated and even though they're really cooperating, I think they would like to know that we have discussions and they can be part of it. And I think at this point, if we could have more conversation going in parallel with waiting for the study, that would be a good idea. So I am hesitant. I feel like it's a lot more money than we heard about the first time, and it is, and then it's still unknown, and it does make me nervous with them being that old. I'm not sure it's prudent for that amount of money.
May I interject too? If you remember in Mr. O'Leary's remarks, he did call for more dialogue and more for, as you stated, Mrs. Story. So we do need to dialogue more about this matter and keep it in the forefront, of course. Yeah. So I think that's extremely important before we move with this.
Any others?
I would just like to say, the problem isn't going to get any better. And if we don't at least do rezoning of Nasm River High School for next school year, we are going to be in even a larger problem. They were creative this year, and they came up with some good solutions. But we are charged with making a decision to do something for Nasm River. The city, we can't rely on them right now. I mean, they've been very honest with us about where a new high school sits on their vision of a CIP. But 10 years, there is no way that Nasm River High School next year or the year after is going to be able to accommodate the students that it has. If you would like me to change my motion, I will withdraw it and say that we rezone Nasm River High School for next school year and the 3 high schools to accommodate the needs of our high school population.
Mr. Mitnick, I believe at our last meeting, this same topic came up, and we all agreed that we would allow the facility study to come through and then make our decision based off of the study. To make a motion now to rezone for next year when we don't know exactly what are our assets and what are not our assets, it's kind of moving. I understand it's a need to fix the situation, but we don't want to move too swiftly and move in the wrong direction. I share with you that something needs to be done. As of right now, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. If we move 30-year-old trailers to that tune of financial money, it's a slap in the face. You don't know what can happen in transport. Trailer could fall apart. It's old. Then when you rezone, there's a whole nother caveat that we're going to have to be able to deal with that. And that beast is called transportation, making sure that we are able to still get our children to school on time. And so, I mean, we're in a tough jam. However, I strongly encourage each school board member to begin dialogue with your city council representative, asking them to rally behind our cause at the next budget, that they move some projects up on the list. I don't know if that means an expansion at Nasm River, so be it. If that means renovating Driver Elementary School to a freshman center, so be it. We have facilities that we own that we are not using but for storage. So this study is going to show us what buildings are worth keeping and which ones need to be just done away with. So I share with you just that we have to be very strategic on how we move forward.
Problem is that study's not going to come in until after we could do anything for next year. It hasn't even started. I don't know that the company's been hired yet. And they told us it would, if they started October, November, it would take till late spring to get it done. Are we going to leave Nasm River hanging out there when they've done everything they can within that facility now?
I think that's reaching. We're not leaving anyone hanging out there. We're making the best of what we have. Our job is to be good stewards over what limited resources we have, and to spend that type of funds with an old Band-Aid is not being wise. To rezone now and not take into account all of the extra stress that will put on the other veins of our wonderful automobile called Suffolk Public Schools, it's not being considerate of the other facets and how we have to operate. I think what would be in our best interest to do is to, in our negotiations for the study, that we let them know we're on a time crunch and we agree to a term that will be more applicable to us and give them an earlier deadline, which is not off the table. They gave a recommendation. We can come back and say this is what we need, and it's up to them as to whether they can meet it or not.
I would say, are you done? I would agree with the others. I can't see trying to spend almost $300,000 that we do not have. And it is October. I would not commit to, I don't think that's being a good steward of what we're responsible for. I realize it's inconvenient for teachers. I've been a teacher in a trailer and on a cart and everywhere else in the school, wherever they could stick me trying to teach. And I realize it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable. But I see that Nansemond River High School has always been outstanding. I'm looking at what they're doing with what they have. I'm not saying we don't need it, but it seems to me not to be prudent or even reasonable to say we're going to do a study and then we're going to move children before we do the study. So we're going to upset the folks who live there, move them to somewhere else. When the study comes back, if it says do something else, then we're moving the kids to some other place. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And by the way, Nansemond River isn't our only, and my students go there as well as yours, it's not our only overcrowded school. It's not the only place where people have to share, have to do whatever they have to do. When I look at Northern Shores and look at the trailer, not a city, but apartment complex behind Nansemond River Elementary, behind Elephants Fork, behind Forest Glen, there are a lot of places where we need to look at what we're doing, but I do believe that it's reasonable and rational and prudent to wait for the study results before we start talking about where we're going to shift people. Because again, if they come back with something different, then we have to move people again. We've done that before, and it caused an uproar in the community with Robinson, Southwestern, and then Pioneer, and then trying to shift those back. I don't see the need in doing that again. I really don't, not at this point in time. I agree with you that sooner or later we're going to have to do something, but I think that's why we're paying for this study, so that we know what it is we're going to have to do. And I think along with the other ideas, looking at our courses, where we're offering, how we're offering them, we're talking about, we have an excellent CTE program. We're talking about moving some places and moving some courses and getting kids more involved with the CTE program, which is a great idea, which will free up some of the space that we have in school. So I just think we need to think differently before we start shifting people around. That's my soapbox, and I'm done with it.
Madam Chair, I'd like to call for the question.
Yeah, there was a vote in a second.
I'd like to move to withdraw the motion. I'd like to withdraw the motion. If Ms. Story will withdraw her second.
Yes, I withdraw the second.
And Dr. Harrison, you're going to proceed with getting us more information, more creative ideas, Mr. O'Leary? Right.
And I did also want to just add and just draw your attention to the teacher feedback that is in your board information for this evening for your review. But they did share some very innovative and creative ideas as well. And I think, it would be worth taking a look at the input that the teachers at Nansemond River have already provided. And I do appreciate them taking the time out of their schedules to sit and meet with the staff to share some of their ideas.
Thank you. Okay, moving to the next item of ordinances. These are second readings. Ordinance 19/20-9, amending Chapter 1, Article 3, Section 1-3.1, entitled Employee Involvement. Encourage Superintendent Official Representative of the Policies of Suffolk City School Board. We have a number of ordinances here for second reading. Continuing on down, I guess, would we like to take each one of these as an action item, or do we want to combine them? Any motion?
Combine them, because most of them are simply edits. There is only one additional one, and that one is ordinance 19/20-19. And that's an additional chapter. That's how to manage school activity funds in general, but the rest of them are just edits and formatting changes that we made in the policy committee. So I would move that we go ahead and vote on these items with the exception of 19/20-19, because that's the only thing that's new.
I second.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Member Mayo,
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick,
Yes.
Board Member Riddick,
Yes.
Board Member Story,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brooks Buck,
Yes.
Chairman Byram,
Yes.
motion carried.
Moving to new business, we have ordinances that are first reading.
Oh, wait, we've got one other. We've got the one that I left out, Madam Chair,
Okay.
12. I didn't know if there was any discussion on 12, because that is new.
Any discussion on 12? Ordinance 19/20-19.
Second reading, but it's a new thing. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
No, I don't have any questions or concerns. It just explains what needs to be done with the school activity funds. So it's good information, and it helps one to know what to do with those funds. So I move that we accept this ordinance.
Second.
Board Member Jenkins,
Yes.
Board Member Mayo,
Yes.
Board Member Mitnick,
Yes.
Board Member Riddick,
Yes.
Board Member Story,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brooks Buck,
Yes.
Chairman Byram,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, now moving to new business, we have ordinances that are for the first reading. Ordinance 19/20-21, Amendment Section 5-2.1, General Statement of Policies, Duties of Teachers and Administrative Staff, Assessment of Suicide Risk by Qualified Professionals, Duties of Qualified Professionals. And then we have Ordinance 19/20-22, 5-2.3, Threat Assessment Team Requirements, Team Members, Principal Information, Report to the Superintendent, Report to Department of Criminal Justice Services, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-23, Amendment Section 5-2.5, fire drills required, lockdown drills, school bus emergency drills, tornado drills, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-24, Amendment Section 5-2.6, emergency closings, notification thereof, parental involvement, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-25, Amendment 5-2.7, vandalism of school property, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-26, amending Section 5-5.2, free and reduced meals, annual agreements, eligibility, determination, public announcements, shame and non-discriminatory amendments. First reading. Ordinance 19/20-27, Amendment 5-5.3, Food Sanitation Program, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-28, Section 5-5.4, Food Service Program and Superintendent Reports, first reading. Ordinance 19/20-29, Amendment Section 5-6.3, Computer System Provided, Privilege not a right, Superintendent to develop regulations, computer system not a public forum, execution of acceptable use agreement, not responsible for information loss, damaged, or unavailable, first reading. Ordinance 1920-31, Amendment Section 5-7.2, Property Insurance, first reading. Ordinance 1920-32, adding Section 6-1.12, Electronic Room Partitions, Annual Safety Review Required, first reading. Ordinance 1920-33, amending Section 6-2.4, Superintendent must approve plans and specifications, first reading. And the last one, Ordinance 1920-30, amending Section 5-71.1, entitled Adequate Insurance Coverage Required of the Policies of the Suffolk City School Board, first reading. They are all informational items. Any discussion?
I just want to encourage the board members, we put these out here for a first reading, and if you have any suggestions, please contact Dr. Brooks or I as you read through them of what we will be discussing them coming up at the next policy meeting. That includes community members as you read through them. Certainly we're receptive to having input on these, and then we'll address them at the policy committee and bring them back to you for a second reading.
Any other comments? Now we have public speakers on non-agenda topics. Ms. Gwen Roundtree. Ms. Roundtree.
Before we go to the public speakers, there was an item that was to have been included under new business, and it was a report from the Policy Review Committee. There were several items that they wanted the board to act on, and I don't know exactly what happened, but it didn't make it on this agenda.
We can put it on the November.
We'll put it on right. We'll make sure that it's on the next month's agenda.
And I think you all have, I know that it was
Received
sent,
it.
you all received it, so they have it to read and look over it.
Mr. Waller.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is that clear? Yeah,
Yes.
we received it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Waller. Ms. Roundtree, not present. We have Arthur Leahy. Arthur Lee.
Safety.
Drew Burnett. Drew. Other public speakers? Okay, if not, we will move on to business by board members. Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you. First of all, I want to welcome Dr. Gordon again for being part of our family. We look forward to productive and exciting times with making sure that our school system continue the progress that it's going. Also, I want to bring up a few things, which I've shared with some. The traffic at Nansemond Parkway Elementary School in the mornings. Because the buses are late, my granddaughter goes to Nansemond Parkway in kindergarten, and we've had to take her to school, and the traffic on Nansemond Parkway is ridiculous. It's scary. Every morning it's almost an accident, serious accidents, and I've called the city. I have not gotten a response from the city manager, and thank you for your reports that you've been great, getting information to me, but information is information. We need to take some action before something seriously happens at Nansemond Parkway, because if you see the pictures, it's like a long traffic of people trying to get in and out of the school, dropping off their kids. And, some people are complaining and say, well, everybody wants to drop off their kids. Well, if you have to go to work and your child's bus is 45 minutes late every morning, you don't have a choice. Because I know my granddaughter's bus driver, she has 3 loads. So it's not that she's at Wawa getting coffee. She's trying to do the best she can. But the parents also have to do, or grandparents have to do what they have to do. They had their security person at Nansemond Parkway trying to direct traffic at one point, and it was smoother, but he almost got hit by a car, so he's not allowed to do that anymore. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm just letting everybody know that something needs to be done soon about it, because we had that same problem at Nansemond River, and a terrible accident happened, and then a red light went up. We don't want to have that sequence. We want to do something before something happens. So I just want to bring that to your attention. I know Dr. Van Hosen is gone, but I really appreciated that bullying presentation that she did. Her school is doing a wonderful job, and I'm sure all of our other schools are implementing things such as bullying prevention as well. Another serious thing that has come up, I don't know if, I'm sure if you Facebook and even on TV, they're talking about lunches. There's kids that don't have money sometimes for lunches. So instead of them getting a hot lunch, you have to go over here and get this cold sandwich or whatever. And I just want to make sure that that never happens in our school system, that all of our kids are, they should get a hot lunch. If the hot, some kids have peanut butter and jelly or whatever, but there should never be a kid that wants a hot lunch that can't get it because they don't have the money. We have a lot of outside people have contacted me about this and want to know, does this happen in our Suffolk Public Schools? And I have done research, and from what I have gathered so far, no, it does not. I've gone to Nansemond Parkway, and I've seen the cafeteria workers put money on, if the kid was short, they would put money, but that's not what we should be doing every day. But we have some businesses, we have some private people that's saying, hey, can there be maybe an additional count somewhere where we can just come and put money for cases like that? So we have people in the community, myself as well, that's willing to do that. But we do not want to ever have a kid slighted because they don't have money, when they could get a hot pizza, but they have to get a cold turkey sandwich because they don't have money. That's just my concern. Like I said, I haven't seen that it happens here.
It doesn't happen.
And I want to make sure it doesn't happen here.
Our students receive a hot lunch.
Yeah.
If they don't have money, they are fed.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So we got that. But just in case, we do have people that's willing to help with funds. In case something ever happens, there are funds available that can help kids, because some kids do not have money on their account. I know that. And I want to thank Mr. Skinner for that wonderful presentation. I should have known when you walked in here with that wooden bow tie that you had something special to give us, because I have never seen a wooden bow tie before. But thank you. That was great. It was almost like a sermon, because you kept saying you were at the end like preachers do, but you kept going and going. But really, it was amazing presentation. I really appreciate that. And one more thing. There's a lot of schools that still don't have PTAs, and that was popular when my kids were in school. And a lot of the principals say they want PTAs, but they don't have parent participation. So I think we need to rally and advertise and promote PTAs, because it helps our schools. So whatever I have to do that, I'm willing to do that, and I hope other people will join in. And this is the last thing. I want to thank everyone for your kindness, your cards, your text messages, calls, your flowers. With the passing of my brother, I really appreciate it. I love you all. Thank you for the staff and everyone that participates and give your heart to Suffolk Public Schools. We really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you.
Estimate.
Yes, first, just an announcement. Tomorrow, the Suffolk Public Schools middle and high school vocal and instrumental music programs will be showcased on the Harvest stage at Peanut Festival, beginning at 10 a.m., and the last group will take the stage at 2:30. I invite everyone to come out and enjoy the entertainment and support our student entertainers. I've had the privilege of being there for the last few years, and they really shine and show that Suffolk Public Schools has an exceptional music program. And my final comment in recognition of Bully Prevention Month, as a victim of email bullying, I commend Suffolk Public Schools for accepting the challenge and offering bully prevention initiative all year, not only in October. Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would like to welcome our new superintendent, Dr. John Gordon, to Suffolk Public Schools. And this is certainly an exciting time in the life of our school division. I look forward to your leadership as you move our school division forward in the education of our children. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Skinner for that very informative and detailed report. And like Chair Byram, Mr. Skinner was one of my students at Florence Bowser Elementary School, so I am certainly proud of him. That shows dates back to some years. Job well done. And also to Dr. Lawson Davenport for the informative report. And I was going to talk about the Governor's School for the Arts. I do serve as a representative from Suffolk on the regional board, and we did have a meeting on yesterday, but she gave you some numbers. We do have 31 students currently enrolled in the Governor's School for the Arts. Also, there is a total of 367 students from all of the school divisions. Some very exciting things are going on. Each of the disciplines, dance, vocal, instrumental, visual arts, and theater and film, are all planning overnight trips, some to New York. Then there is a trip to Japan that our instrumental and vocal students will have an opportunity to do some goodwill concerts. So exciting things are happening with the Governor's School for the Arts. I just wanted you to know, and I enjoy serving on that particular board, and we look forward to more from that particular board. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make mine brief tonight. First and foremost, I want to thank the policy committee. They are on the money. It's actually a policy that they already have up for our first reading to ensure that nothing happens like that as far as children not receiving lunch in our school system. And I want to say thank you for that. The second thing is Kings Fork High School marching bands. Kings Fork High School marching band. I'm not biased just because I'm an alumni, but the band has been doing remarkable work. They have won in the past 3 weeks, I want to say, over 4 competitions and placed in the top 3 in all categories. It's remarkable because band is, I believe, is one of our largest scholarship generators for our students here in Suffolk. However, there's one thing I would like to ask of the Policy Review Committee, if you can look into the possibility of putting something in place to ensure that all agenda items are submitted to board members a week in advance. I do know that there were some things, unforeseeable circumstances that were beyond the control that came up. However, in doing business, we want to make sure that we have this situation going forward, that it doesn't happen again. And then lastly, I look forward to working with you as well, Dr. Gordon, but I want to take my hat off to Dr. Harrison and the team at the moment. You all rose to the occasion. You stepped in. You got us over the hurdle. We're here, and I look forward to seeing the great success that we're going to continue to have together. I also look forward to working with our city council to alleviate some of these situations. In closing, I ask that someone reach out. Madam Chair, I don't know if it's you or Dr. Gordon or Dr. Harrison, whomever, but if someone could reach out to the city of Suffolk. I was in a meeting this past week with our Vice Mayor, Leroy Bennett, and he informed me that he was not aware that John F. Kennedy had flooding issues or drainage issues. I ask that you all please reach out and notify our city officials about that. So, because they're putting new development on East Washington Street, and that new development is going to force more storm water to come down to where John F. Kennedy is, which would result in more building flooding. So if that's something that we can get a head on, maybe they could come in and put a better drainage pond. Because he said he's adamant he wants us to help. He just want to be made aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Story?
I want to say thank you to Dr. Harrison very much for all the work that you've done. You've been just great, and I think you will, as of Monday, feel a little lighter in your step, and good. So thank you so much. Can we give her a hand? And welcome aboard. We're very excited to have you, and it's a very exciting time, and I wish you the best of luck on finding that house. Good luck house hunting. I'm glad it's you, not me. So, yeah, good luck with that, definitely. I am the representative for the WHRO board, and we had a quarterly meeting. I hope all of you got the report that was given, and I sent it to all of you. We had, Dr. Gordon and I met with the executive director last Friday, Bert Schmidt. We just went through the packet in terms of Suffolk's participation with WHRO. Our ROI, or return on investment, is about $48 to 1. And I think it's our goal and my goal to increase our use of, we pay $2 per student for the services of WHRO and all their educational services. No matter what, we pay $2. And the more we use their services, well, then the more the return on that investment. So there are areas that we are low in terms of how we participate, and so it's our goal to increase that for next year and see an increase and use those free services. I think they have just a lot of wonderful things to offer. So I'm excited about that. That's my report. Then I went on Tuesday. I was invited to go to the AFCEA, Armed Forces Communication and Electronics Association. Didn't know they existed, but it was a great luncheon, and the reason I was invited was we had 3 teachers from Lakeland High School receive a $1,000 grant each for new science equipment. And this is the 4th year in a row they've each received $3,000. Amy Jacobs, Heather McGee, and Sarah McDonald. So that's $12,000 worth of science equipment that's gone to Lakeland High School, which is just awesome. So I want to commend the ladies for continuing to write for those grants and the great amount of equipment they brought into Lakeland High School for science. The other thing is, I think the comment I get most often is a real concern is our elementary school teachers are staying very, very late for late buses. And they're just, too many are not leaving till 5:30, 5:45, and that just is really not fair to them. So that is overwhelming, the emails I get. What can we do about that? It's a bit above my pay grade, but I want to put it out there, and I think we have to, I don't know the solutions, but that is a really late time. They have a policy that until there's only 2 buses left, there's a lot of teachers staying. They all have to sort of stay. I hear that's the going policy at elementary schools. So I'm putting it out there. I would really like, I don't know if it's the same buses, if it's different routes needed. I don't know what it is, but I do agree that is just too late for too many teachers to be staying. That's a very, very long day for them. So other than that, I'm excited about where we're going. This is a great new day. So thank you.
Dr. Buck? Yes. Let's see. I'd like to say, let me start off with something that I'm concerned about. There are some late buses also at Creekside getting children there. That's a concern that we all have in various places, and I'm sure it's because it's more than one run that people are making. Fortunately, there are some parents who have the luxury of being able to drive, but the ones who contacted me have indicated that they have no transportation, which means their children miss the first hour of instruction. And that is definitely a concern for me and something I don't know how we can work it out, but we're trying to do some things to meet that need and change things there. And I'm sure with the new personnel that we're getting, hopefully, we will solve that problem in some way. I want to say, of course, welcome. And I gave him the wahoo-wah for UVA. Okay. I want to say, I went to Northern Shores PTA meeting. We had a great night. The teachers came, and of course, half were dressed in their bully prevention outfits, and the others were dressed in other colors, but they do a wonderful job there. I think it's a great school, and the faculty's working together, as they always have, to try to do the best they can for children. I want to give a special shout out because on Wednesdays I get to teach reading, and it's something that I've done over the years to try to go back to doing something that I remember to do that might be good for somebody. So I teach reading every Wednesday at Northern Shores. And I want to say hi to the Together group. That's the name of our group. And they work really well. I'm really proud of them. I attended the Pilot Club the Miss Peanut Festival along with Mrs. Mayo and Mrs. Byram. And we, of course, had students from each of our 3 high schools as well as the 2 other private high schools. They did a wonderful job. They were very impressive. And again, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Skinner, because I'm really proud of what we've done with CTE. And thank you to all of you, because we do well because we work together as a team, and everyone is valued, from transportation to food service to cleaning the building and opening the doors, and everybody else who serves in any other capacity. So just thank you for a wonderful start to the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Buck. Well, I'd like to say a few things, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gordon. I think we're on a great journey. That's the way I see it. We're on a great journey. And I'm very excited and I'm very uplifted by a lot of the things I've heard in the last few months. And I just want to recap a couple of those things that make me so excited and know that we're moving in the right direction. And one of those is that all of our schools are fully accredited. We found that out in August. We found out recently that our graduation rate has improved. We're right up there where we would like to be, but we're going to improve more. Right, Dr. Gordon? Exactly. And we're working on strategies right now. We've had a decline in the dropout rate. That is something that to me is just wonderful. And we are making news and headlines. You know, you open the paper and there it is, and it's very rewarding. Dr. Gordon is coming on board. That's very uplifting. I know he has a lot of new ideas. He brings with it a wealth of experience. I'm sure he's going to tap Dr. Lane to help get us all kinds of things. I hope he's thinking about grants, and, you know, I can only imagine, right?
That's
It's
right.
a wonderful journey. We're also very blessed, and I'm very grateful that we have such a great group of employees in Suffolk. We do have a great team. We're moving in the right direction. The journey is just beginning. And we got to keep up that momentum. We've got to keep it, you know. There's some times that things dip down, but we got to put that aside. We got to look to our goals. What are our ultimate goals, always? And, you know, what can I say about this young lady over here? I've worked closely with her for the last 3 or 4 months. Dr. Buck and I have. Dr. Gordon's already working with her, but she's done an outstanding job. You know, I don't know how we can ever thank you, Dr. Harrison. And I look at her and I see the future. That's what I see. I tell her that all the time. And I know she couldn't do that without those that are sitting out here. I thank all of you for stepping up to the plate and actually doing everything that you needed to do, plus more, during this transition. I know it's not an easy job. Right. Thank you, Ms. And, we know that everybody has had to step up their game, so to speak. But that's what we do in Suffolk Public Schools. That's what we do. And, I really do appreciate where we are. We're not perfect, we know that. I want to also commend the board. We worked very diligently to get a new superintendent. That was not an easy process. We all realize that now, right? It's not an easy process. And I want to commend the board for beginning to come together and work together. That's what we've got to try to do for the future, to move us to the next level. And we've done some outstanding work over the last few months. And we're not ever going to be in total agreement. That's not what I'm about. But I think we all bring good things to the board. And we're going to use those things to motivate us to move to the next level. I do have one other thing before I turn it over to Dr. Gordon. No one said this, but I want to congratulate Mr. Riddick. I believe he's just added an addition to his family. I think he has a little boy, and he weighed 7 pounds and 10 ounces. And he was named after a great man, Tyrone Riddick the second, right? So he's a proud papa. So we want to congratulate you, Mr. Riddick.
Thank you.
All right. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Gordon.
Madam Chair,
for a few remarks.
I just had one thing I forgot to mention. If at all possible, Dr. Gordon, could you bring back at the next meeting the cost it would cost us if we would take our part-time custodians and make them full-time with benefits options? If we could get what that would cost us. Thank you, that's it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mrs. Jenkins was also in attendance, remember, at the
Oh, that's right.
the Peanut Fest.
Pilot Club.
The Queen's
That's right, she
banquet.
was there.
And our own Dr. Harrison was the MC for the evening.
Right, and she did an outstanding job. Yes, she so if you need an MC, she's going to have a little more time now.
She
did
works
an
for
outstanding job.
One other thing we forgot. We talked about the board, but we didn't talk about the person who brought that all together. Mrs. Chavis, there is no way in the world we could have hired a superintendent and done all the stuff that you did to get this going. And I just want to say thank you out loud. Thank you a lot, because you worked every day, evenings, mornings, anytime.
Anybody else? Now, Dr. Gordon.
Definitely. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to also publicly thank Dr. LaToya Harrison, who not only was serving as interim superintendent, also assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, also director of secondary education during the last couple of months. And even when I was announced last month, I wanted to make sure that we brought that to our school divisions and our school community's attention. The outstanding work that she has done. Even after she emceed the Peanut Fest, we had a nice conversation on our way home, as she really did a tremendous job of keeping me up to speed and up to date on things. And I know for a fact I feel so much more prepared from the assistance from her, the rest of our staff, Ms. Connard, Dr. Rice, Dr. Brown. We've sat and had some long meetings, just really discussing everything that really needed to happen to really move Suffolk Public Schools forward. I want to let everyone know, be on the lookout for an important message coming this Sunday evening, as I want to make sure that our students and our families can really match a name to the face of their new division leader. And I'm a big believer in symbolism, which is part of the reason why I had Dr. Harrison hold the Bible tonight for my swearing in, kind of like a passing of the torch. And LaToya, I just want to say thank you for everything, and you're outstanding. Thank you so much.
I look forward to serving, sir, and supporting your vision, so thank you.
Anyone else before we move on? We have informational items. Any question or discussion on those? If not, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Listen, my phone started.
Well, it's been
She's officially back to the
What time do you have to be there?